Hello, dear viewers. Oh, you know what? Give me a second. We're going to have to talk to my guy about this. Where's the button? I'm not sure if my YouTube is actually live. Give me 1 second. How do I edit this? Where's the button? Oh, maybe it is live. Hold on. We'll see. But anyway, hi. How's everyone doing? Freshly Exhumed says, yes, it is, and you see me? Good. I was just hoping, like, because I've been doing these shorts thing, and sometimes I forget to go from private to public when I'm putting shorts out and things like that, and releasing things. So I'm just hoping this is publicly viewable. We'll see, I suppose. There should be a setting though, and I need to learn how to do this, gang. Okay, I'm pretty bad at these things, but let me bring on some of the guests. Hello, you're live.
Greetings.
Give me 1 second. I'm just playing with my my YouTube settings here. There's should be a button, and I'm not sure where it is.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Is this the button? I don't know. No, it's not, gang. I want to insert ads. I don't want to delay ads. I just want to adjust the settings. Here we go.
Let it be known that the call time was 5:55, and I was in the waiting room at 5:55. The only
We
one.
love it. We love to see it.
We try.
We love to see it. Okay. I think punctuality is important in life. A lot of people disagree with me. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, how's things going? It's been a while. Well, not that long, right? But how you doing?
Well, you know, well, time is relative, right? So
True.
it could be a while, but no, things are going good. As always, appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward. This should be a fun one. This is my second time going up against Mr. Pisco. First time doing anything with Lactoid, so that's what I'm excited about. And unfortunately, I don't know much about Mr. Ahrelevant, so we'll, I guess, learn as we go.
Guy. I like all of the people involved today, so everyone should be happy and having fun. Speaking of Lactoid, hello. Sir.
Gotta give him a second, okay?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sounding good.
Heck yeah.
A little bit too much.
You unbutton. How many buttons are you unbuttoning, buddy? You should charge a tier list, right? Like, keep the top one button until you hit a certain amount, then you
15 for every button,
right?
Not bad. Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Let's.
Well, heck, I feel underdressed now.
Just a shirt. You're good.
I'm
not wearing like a suit or nothing.
So, actually, you're both lawyers. You might find this amusing. I did. So there was a. Give me a second. Let me find the exact quote. But one of the DOJ's attorneys today, was in court, and let me see if I can. Here it is. So the DOJ attorney Julie Lee said, and I quote, "The system sucks. This job sucks." To Judge Jerry Blackwell, who pressed her on why so many court orders are being ignored by ICE and the Trump admin, and she asked to be held in contempt just so she could get 24 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow.
That, I don't know. That doesn't seem normal to me.
Well.
Crazy stuff going on.
You know, unprecedented times. all around. I feel like everyone probably thinks they're in unprecedented times, though.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it's a
I'm
thought
sure they
experiment.
do, but I've never heard a quote like that before from a court proceeding where an attorney asks to be held in contempt just because there's so much coming at them. So
Yeah, I think probably the closest I could come up to that was in in Young Thug's case, the Rico case. The real short backstory is that Young Thug's defense team found out some information from the DA's office, and the judge was demanding that they disclose their source, and the attorney was saying, "No, I'm not going to, and you can't make me." And he said, "I'll hold you in contempt, throw you in jail." And he said, "Okay, do it." And then he did, and so he got to spend the weekend in jail with his client. And
here we are.
he came out and got that case thrown out, and then he was the attorney that also defended Diddy and got a really good outcome there for him. So he's on a bit of a hot streak right now. Brian Steele, I think, is his name.
I'd heard the story, but I wasn't sure the details. So that's kind of a cool quote. But that quote makes him look badass.
Right,
This
exactly.
quote
Yeah.
does not make her look badass. In fact,
No,
it's
I
the
agree.
opposite.
I
It
agree.
makes it look kind of weak. I don't know where your opponents are. Give me a second, please.
All good. Take your time. Let's see. You said we're live, right?
Yeah, we're live.
Good. I can talk to chat. We could set some things straight. You know, me and chat, we got beef. No, just kidding. We love chat, of course. But I will say, I think my most favorite my favorite complaint I get that I see in chat, and I try not to look too much, but it's the is this guy a real lawyer? He can't be a real lawyer. And it's just so funny. I'm sure Lactoid gets
Everybody
a lot
says
too.
that.
Yeah,
So dumb.
it's good memes all around.
Even
It's like,
even when they do it to our enemies, like so many times I'll see people like Pisco's not a real lawyer. It's like, no, he's
yeah,
definitely a real lawyer.
Yeah, Ahrelevant's thought it was at 6:30, but he's heading on now, and he should be here in 5. So let me see where Pisco
right.
is.
Or what Kung Fu Joe 3, he's on the money. The lefties, they got cold feet. They saw what they're up against. The tag team, me and Lactoid, we're of the same mind. We have not spoken before today, but we haven't needed to speak because we just telepathically communicate. We don't even need to send thoughts because we just have the same thoughts naturally.
Yeah, I saw Pisco, just to answer my chat. Yes, I saw Pisco was chatting with Hutch just now, so hopefully he's going to be
That
here
guy.
soon.
What was your takeaway on that, Wick?
On the Hutch versus Pisco?
Yeah, I caught some of it.
So I tend to agree that Hutch's methods are more effective than Pisco's when it comes to persuading, convincing, and getting a bigger Democratic margin. I do think that he grants too much grace to people like the Vanguard, Kyle Kulinski, Hassan, etc. It's frustrating because Pisco does this thing. It's called an isolated demand of rigor. Okay, demands a lot more rigor from one side than he does from the other when it comes to who he's talking to. But that's my opinions. But in general, my only real advocacy with Pisco is simply to push back more and demand more rigor from the left. The lefties, the tankies, the Kyle Kulinskis. So
Yeah, I would agree, and I think we had our own little run through with that with the whole Fuentes Carlson thing.
yeah,
Yeah. I On that topic though, whatever happened to Kyle Kulinski? I remember watching his like Politicon. Who was it debate with? Was it against Charlie Kirk? I think
I
it was
don't
like
remember.
2017 or something. It's I guess old by now, but like I just remember that was my first time really seeing him. Like, oh, okay, this guy he's pretty on it. He knows his stuff and he's quick on his feet. And I don't know. And maybe I guess that is a long time ago at this point. But
Yeah, Pisco is on his way. He's going to go piss first, apparently, according to Zero Fucks. So hopefully they'll be here soon.
As is in his name.
Yeah, $5 from Audacity to say Lactoid, best lawyer to ever lawyer. He taught Johnny Cochran. He made Ben Shapiro in a lab. Lactoid is the Yakub of lawyers.
let's not like, I appreciate the support, but let's not go crazy. I mean, Cochran, he was able to get somebody who clearly fucking did it off. So
Would you have been able to do that, Lactoid?
I don't know. The case against OJ was one of the strongest cases, like against a murderer ever, and through just sheer ability and manipulation, Cochran and the rest of OJ's team was able to get him off. So, I mean, that takes a level of skill that is, probably beyond 95 to 98% of all lawyers today.
Are you not going
And
live today, Lactoid? What's going on?
I'm live
I don't see you.
on Twitch.
Yeah.
I'm streaming. It still says I'm
Did you
live.
ban me or something?
No, I've got commenters in my chat. I'm looking at yours. Looks like you're live.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know I am.
Yeah, I can see you. You can't see me.
I'm knocking on your. I'm good. I was
All right.
requesting a knock, right?
I accepted it.
Okay.
Did it go through?
I don't know. Oh, there we go. We got Ahrelevant here at least. What's up, King? Pisco's going to the restroom right now, so he'll be here in a second.
Okay.
Then we'll get started. So I guess everyone's a little late today. But how you been? How you been, man?
I've been all right. How are you?
Oh, one day after another, man. We get through. Lots of stuff to talk about these days. Okay, and on the one hand, I appreciate it. It gives me a lot of options. But on the other hand, I feel like compelled to cover all of it, and it's just a lot, man. So.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of stuff that happens all the time. It's a bit overwhelming. 1 second.
Yeah.
Great, live?
wonderful content. We're all sitting here, dicks in our hands, saying nothing. Dead
Pisco's in the
silence.
vetting room.
Okay, we got Pisco too. Great, everyone's here.
1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. Okay.
How's everybody doing?
Audio connections. We got visual connections. I think it's time to actually get this shit show started. Thank you all for being here. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both cultural and political, from the silly to the serious. Today we're going to be talking about Don Lemon. For those of you who don't know, Don Lemon went with a group of protesters to a church in Minnesota. The protesters disrupted the service and have been charged with violating the FACE Act. Don Lemon recorded them and documented it. The government has decided, however, to charge Don Lemon also with violations of the FACE Act. And again, the question becomes, was he exercising his First Amendment right recording the protest, or was he an active part of the protest, as the government alleges, and so doing violated the FACE Act? We got some great people to discuss it today, and we're going to get into it. Let's give the mic first to Mr. Gen Z, and we'll just kind of go around. Go ahead, Gen Z.
Thank you, Wick, as always, for having me, and good to see everybody. Pisco for the second time, Ahrelevant Lactoid for the first time. Looking forward to getting a great discussion tonight. I'm a GenZAttorney. I'm a solo practitioner in North Carolina. I do a little bit of everything litigation-wise, civil, criminal, family. Yeah, haven't been putting much content up as of late because I've been busy getting this law firm up and running, which has been a lot of fun. But still do debates here and there, and looking forward to talk tonight. I am of the opinion that the charges were appropriate. I think we've got the 3 charges here, and of course we'll get into all the details with it. But yeah, no, I think there was an agreement to go into the church. I think plenty of overt acts were taken to go in. I think I'll probably argue a lot about his intent, and of course whether or not, even if everything he did was criminal, is it protected underneath a First Amendment right to the freedom of the press and whatnot. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. There's a lot more to get into. I could go on for a lot longer, but I'll probably just keep it simple there and say I agree with the charges, and yeah, I think it's the defenses are a little, I don't know, I'll call them interesting. I'll leave it at that and make of that what you will. But thank you for having me, and looking forward to getting into it.
Thanks for being here. Lactoid.
Yeah, give me 1 second. So I just want to start off with just a little bit of a hedge here. So this is a unresolved case. So nothing that anybody says here is going to be definitive. Speaking for myself, my opinions may change as this case evolved. And everything I say here is specifically regarding my belief as to the strength of the allegations and whether the evidence thus far justifies the allegations and the arrest, not whether Don Lemon or any of the protesters are actually guilty of any of the charged offenses. My opinions are as follows. The case against the other protesters, besides Don Lemon, I think are particularly strong. The case against Lemon for misdemeanor charges under the FACE Act is moderate. I think any kind of trespass would be much stronger. But I do believe that there is a moderate argument under the FACE Act. The case against Lemon for conspiracy charges under the KKK Act, I think, is weaker. I do think that's weaker on the weak side. I think a jury could find it, though. Even though we do have, we could get protesters under these specific laws, Don Lemon and the rest. Any kind of penalty that is for years and years, I think, is excessive. The KKK Act, I think, allows up to 10 years. I think anything close to that would be wildly excessive. I would want the punishment here to be much, much lower than that. So I'm very moderate on what the actual punishment should be. And then I have some, and then I also have some problems with really the KKK Act and the FACE Act as they stand. I have some problems with those acts as well. But I do think that Don Lemon, for his actions, did deserve to get. The evidence appears to show that he deserved to get arrested at the very least for the trespassing he did. But I think that the argument of the FACE Act is also there's something there. There's some meat in the bone.
Okay, we'll get to it. And thanks for being here. Pisco, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think a bunch of the caveats that Lactoid may make sense, though not all of them. That I think we're assessing whether or not there's a legal basis for these charges, and not necessarily the ultimate disposition of the case, because of course there could be some evidence that we're unaware of that they didn't include in the indictment. And so, with that caveat underway, I think that almost certainly Don Lemon committed a trespass. I think that that's kind of trivial once he was asked to leave, and you stick around for a little bit. Yeah, and trespass by itself is not like First Amendment speech. There's not a journalist immunity to trespass laws or to criminal laws in general. And the FACE Act by itself has been sustained facially against First Amendment challenges, primarily because it targets the use of force, threats, or physical obstruction for a given set of purposes. And so I don't necessarily think that the Lemon case by itself and the elements of the case necessarily raise a First Amendment issue. What I think the First Amendment issue is relates to the actual evidence in this case and whether or not we think the FACE Act violation happened, which I think so far, I don't think probable cause has been established at all. I don't think that there's any good evidence that he had some sort of conspiracy with these individuals, that he was trying to bring about the outcome of the physical obstruction, threats slash force that was used. I'm assuming they're going to argue that it was physical obstruction, and that if it were the case that Don Lemon's actions, as far as we know them from his stream and from the indictment, were sufficient to make out a conspiracy against rights under the FACE Act as a substantive offense, I think that the First Amendment concern is that that would chill a great deal of investigatory journalism that a lot of conservatives and certainly a lot of liberals and lefties think is socially useful. And so I do think that the case is relatively strong against the protesters as such. I think there's definitely probably probable cause for them. But I don't think the case is particularly strong against Don Lemon, either on the conspiracy front or on the substantive FACE Act violations. And you don't just have to take my view on it. Multiple magistrate judges refused to grant the criminal complaint in this case, and they went to an alternative method to impanel a grand jury through that process where it's ex parte and there's no other judge. And so I don't think that I would be stepping out of bounds to say that me and other judges, and even someone I quoted yesterday in a different debate, Robert Barnes, who is a lawyer, like a pure MAGA type lawyer who wants Trump to do well, who wants Trump to weed out corruption. I think his estimation after reading the indictment was like less than 10% chance of conviction, and he doesn't think that it's a particularly good case. So I'm not just doing this and saying this because I'm liberal and biased. I think that it's a thin case against Don Lemon,
Okay.
and for that reason, it's bad for the First Amendment.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We'll get into it, I'm sure. And last, but certainly not least, Ahrelevant, please.
Howdy. So I'm Ahrelevant. I'm not in any way, shape, or form like practicing lawyer. I've never even, been to law school, not really studied any of that stuff at all. My primary and chief concern here in this conversation is to talk about the kind of logical extent of the arguments made as to, the consequences in the material world for whatever precedent we're setting. That's kind of the position that I'm going to be taking. So if you're somebody watching who's like, hey, listen, I don't know a lot of this lawyer mumbo jumbo and stuff like this, I'm with you. And I'm going to be trying to make the best case for where, I feel like the mumbo jumbo might be going and how it might affect the average ordinary person and your day-to-day life. So happy to be here.
Hey, sounds very good. I guess the simple question to start the panel is, regardless of whether or not you think that the protesters violated the FACE Act or not, Don Lemon himself, do you think he should have been charged by the government? Why or why not? Go ahead.
No, because I don't think that there's probable cause to charge him. And because I don't think that there's probable cause to charge him, I don't think that he should have been charged.
Do you guys
You
disagree?
think he should have
Why?
been charged with trespass at the very least?
Yes.
So
I don't think that the federal government has a or should have a say on normal trespass. But I do think he should have been charged with trespass. I think that this was bad enough in terms of the disruption there, and it's part of like the example of civil disobedience in the past. It has been part of that movement to accept those kinds of punishments, and they're legal to do. They're applying, and that's part of the risk you take is those kinds of trespass activities. And so I don't think it would be inconsistent for me to say that I'm against the FACE Act, and I don't think you're alleging this, just to be clear, but that I do think that in this particular case, should be charged with trespass. I do think he should be, and I think I would prefer it if they had been outside the church the entire time.
I want to
What's your
attorney.
question, Gen Z?
Yeah, do you guys, when we talk about probable cause for the FACE Act, right? Because that's what we're talking about
Right.
now. What
So
would you
just
consider
to-
your probable cause? Go ahead.
Yeah, so to lay the groundwork for Mr. Ahrelevant and then any viewers watching, the legal standard for probable cause is totality of the circumstances. So you're looking at the entire situation, the entire big picture. You're taking the pros, taking the cons, weighing them all against each other, and then deciding on the totality of the circumstances. Basically, is there enough meat there for a case to move forward? That's why, and these are tested through grand juries, these are tested through magistrates. It is a much lower bar than conviction. Everyone here agrees with that. And so I
Yes.
think, yeah. And so I think, though, to do the analysis properly, well, first, I guess my question would be for Pisco. Do you think there's any evidence at all that indicates Don Lemon might have shared in the intent or shared the goal of the other protesters?
It depends what you mean by any evidence in that context. So if you mean is something that someone could argue is shows his intent one way or the other, I think the answer is yes. But I think that that evidence is equivocal, by which I mean it's open to another, I think, more plausible interpretation, which is not that he shared the specific goal of creating the object of the conspiracy, but the journalistic goal. And I think that that's true of him in that moment. And also, just to be clear, I want to be nuanced on it because you're right that probable cause is the standard for this arrest and even indeed the indictment. And that is what I said, sir, and I'm going to stick to it. I do think that there's no probable cause. But even if it were the case that I thought there was probable cause, the DOJ guidelines tell you that you shouldn't charge, or at least their practice is not to charge unless they think they can get beyond a reasonable doubt. And so even if you convince me in this moment that there's probable cause, I would fall back on, but I don't think that they could get enough evidence and none has been presented to get to beyond a reasonable doubt. And even if they do technically have the ability to charge them under probable cause, I don't think they should unless they can get that higher standard.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you as well as far as, I mean, everything you just said, I'm largely in agreement with there. And I think there certainly was a misstep. I don't think the DOJ had to issue an arrest warrant. I think they could have issued a summons and proceeded from that point. So certainly there's the undeniable political angle to it. But I think the main question that I have Well, I kind of already asked it of like what evidence there is, and we can go through some of the examples of just
I can give
people-
you like the best evidence of the case that they have. I can try to steelman it if you'd like.
It's the
Steelman
interview.
Yeah.
Well, can
it's the interview.
Lactoid, can you tell me what
Yeah.
you mean the interview?
So the question is, does the interview that Don Lemon did with the pastor, does that with interfering, right? Are you interfering with the expression of, are you interfering with the process of the church, the expression of faith? Are you meeting that prong of the FACE Act when it comes to what Don Lemon did to the pastor? And when I watch that video, when I see the pastor basically surrounded, right? He's got one guy on his left, he's got another guy, and then Don Lemon is right up on him, asking a bunch of questions, and he seems to be trying to make some space for himself, like using his hand to try to make some space for himself, which by kind of easing Don off of him. And then Don is like, don't, just, I'm trying to keep this respectful. Don't push me. And when I'm looking at the totality of circumstances there, it certainly seems to me that a case can be made that Don is interfering at that point, that it's not just that he's like hiding in some corner of the church that he walked in and just videotaping it, but that he is participating in the interference that's occurring to the functions of that church.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Okay. So is the argument then that, let's say that Don Lemon was full-blown MAGA. We knew that he was not there to in any way to support anything that was going there, and he was just asking questions to the pastor. Would that change how you feel about it at all? Because what you described has nothing to do with. Okay, so then what?
Actually,
let's-
I don't think so.
I think it
Oh,
does.
it
There's a
definitely
dual-
should.
Yeah, it
dual
should,
intent
right? It
question.
sounded like intent, right?
Well, see, yeah,
Not
I think it's
necessarily.
word
There's a dual intent question, but so my interpretation of this, and I think this is the case in the Eighth Circuit, is that you don't have to, like, the underlying like grand purpose, I don't think is dispositive here. I think if you are intentionally doing the act that is causing the disruption, if you're intentionally doing the act knowing that it's causing some kind of impediment and you're doing it, that this would be sufficient. And that's, again,
I'm unsure about that as well. To give Lactoid some credit, like there's two parts of the intent, which is like, do you intend to do the physical act, and do you and to like actually obstruct / use force / threats? And then there's at some level of generality, this improper motive. There is a motive analysis that is part of the FACE Act. And just for the people who are watching enough on long, the FACE Act requires one of three conducts: physical, force, threat, or physical obstruction. Yeah, so those are the three kinds of things you can do with a motive, and the motive splits off in this way, in this kind of dual intent. And so the question is, at what level of generality does the ultimate motive have to be? Like, if for example, this example I always use, a bunch of people did the same exact thing, but they're like, this guy, he is abusing the altar boys. He's abusing the altar boys. In that context, they don't really want to stop the exercise of the First Amendment, but they know it's going to be like a necessary consequence of the actions they do. And the question is, what level of generality do we see the motive? They care that, in the example I provided, more about the like corruption that they're outing and that this pastor is wrong. That's why they're doing the disruption. Is that the motive that we're looking at? I'm not sure if the Eighth Circuit has resolved that.
But I think to answer your question, Ahrelevant, I think the intent actually does matter as far as, and this is probably one of my biggest arguments here, is when I look at the totality of circumstances, it appears to me that Don Lemon, yes, he's saying at different times, oh, I'm just a journalist, I'm just chronicling, but it appears to me, based on his comments both during the whole ordeal and his comments after the fact, that he actually did share in the intent, share in the goal, ideologically with the group that was going in. And I think that matters as far as if you're going into further a conspiracy and you're participating in that, and you're going to, oh, I'm just interviewing, I'm just asking questions. But if your questions are very clearly like angled one direction towards the pastor, of like, it's a very hostile interview to the pastor, very friendly interview to the organizer. So to answer the question directly, if this was Alex Jones that went in there and was interviewing the pastor, talking about, isn't this just so terrible how these people are coming in here and disrupting stuff, I think that is a material fact as far as you can easily say, okay, he's not sharing in the intent of the conspirators, and therefore you can't find him guilty underneath a conspiracy statute.
Just to,
So I think that's a good.
just for my edification, my
It could be for
audience's
the
edification,
conspiracy.
you keep mentioning statements or acts that he made. Can you give us the strongest examples you have? of Don Lemon's, either before or during, that you think show his intent to be disruptive?
I
Before is
think
the best. I don't know
yeah,
why you
yeah,
guys are focusing on during and after. Before, the best argument they have is the statements that he made before, where it's like, "Don't reveal where you're going." He said that to his
yeah.
producer, I think, and also to one of the protesters. But I can tell you why I don't think it meets probable cause. But once he's there, I think the statements are again equivocal, and there's another purpose behind them, which is journalistic. And he asks questions. He points out that people are scared. So I don't think that it's so one sided as you say. I do think he's sympathetic, and I think that is a point against him. But I just don't think it rises to the level of probable cause. And but yeah, no, that go ahead for the Gen Z attorney for the pre statements if you want to talk about them.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
I
it's the
mean,
best case.
you did a good job summarizing some of them. I would add on in there when he's using phrases like we are about to go do something, or we are gathering here to go do something, and then when he talks to the organizer, and basically says to her directly like, I appreciate what you're doing, or like you're doing a good thing. He said something to that effect when he was interviewing her beforehand. And then on top of that, the fact that he is taking steps to avoid. And here's the thing: I'm actually curious to hear my fellow lawyers' takes on how significant it is the fact that he's live streaming. He's not just recording for posterity to then make something after the fact and put it out there, like we see with some of these ride-alongs with like a terrorist group or something, or a gang. But like the fact that he's actually live streaming, such that by doing that, if he does it in the wrong way, if he shows the wrong thing, information can get out and it can actually jeopardize the operation. I think
Yeah, no, that's yeah, that I think is helpful evidence for Don. Right? The fact that it's a live stream. Now you could make the argument, I don't buy it, with like, well, that's part of their conspiracy is they didn't just want to do this, they wanted to document it. And so that's part of their whole agreement. And the live stream of it, but the live stream of it, right? That makes it so it's more likely that police will be alerted, that people will know what's going on. You can't plan everything, you can't curate everything. And so I think the live streaming aspect of it, I think will lead one to think less. I think we'll read less into the whole notion that he's hiding the location, right?
I would agree with you if the live streaming was being done in a way that was disclosing some of these details ahead of time. It creates that risk. But the fact that he was taking steps, and maybe this will come into a discussion if we talk about the overt acts later. But the fact that he's taking active steps to, hey, let's move away from the crowd, let's turn the camera away, let's take the microphone away beforehand, and with making explicit statements like, oh, we're not saying what's going on, we don't want to disclose, we need an element of surprise, stuff like that. The fact that all that is being live streamed, I think that cuts against him as far as he's taking steps to make sure this operation does go off without jeopardy. Like to me,
I think that. So I think that is consistent. The reason why I say it's equivocal, I think that's like really consistent with a journalist who makes it like who makes a commitment to like a subject, just like you might have with respect to who's this BBC guy who goes to the Westboro Baptist Church? He goes to meet with
Louis
settlers or whatever. Yeah, Louis Theroux. Where you
I love
can
Louis Theroux.
part of these like embedded journalists, people who do these things, they make agreements with the people that they're documenting. Listen, I'm not going to show this. I'll show this. It's part of the journalistic. It's a give and take kind of thing. And so it doesn't surprise me, right, that Don Lemon would make those kinds of things if he, like, for example, agreed, hey, I'm going to cover this. I want to cover you. And they were like, well, I don't want you to reveal what we're doing before we do it. And he says, don't worry, we won't do that. And he's making good on his commitment. The point is, I think the government has the burden to show that plausible or purpose or motive in there is not there, because I see that situation and the way he says we in that context, and that to me that's all consistent with the journalistic purpose. I don't think it's as true if, for example, you had an agreement with that you can show which said this would be a good idea. Let's say that Don is making suggestions about which place to target, or Don is making other kinds of statements to say this was like really, really good that it happened. Then I would, even after the fact, I would say that's better evidence. And I do think he's sympathetic, but I don't think that evidence gets you to probable cause that he wanted the outcome and that there was a criminal agreement. And that's what I think is missing.
Well, a couple of things, if I could. I've not been able to find verification on this, so again, take this with a huge grain of salt. But somebody made the argument to me that Don Lemon did at one point either like give one of the protesters a ride or help one of the protesters who like got stuck or something along those lines to the place. And my question is, if that did happen, let's say, would that be sufficient for you at that point? That
So if you're helping people get
Get
to
to
a
the
given
place
place, I
to
think
do the
that's
thing.
that's stronger evidence. That's stronger evidence. I
Okay.
will not say that that is um, as subject to. But the thing is, unfortunately, you still have that like the lack of the foundation for an agreement. I think it's stronger evidence that you're bringing more people there,
Yeah.
presumably to have an effect, maybe, I guess, if it's like a very important person or something. But it's also possible that he had a car and that it was always arranged. I mean, he might bring some protest. I don't know. In other words, I think the circumstances of how the ride was provided, what things were stated, that's going to be relevant. But I didn't see that in the indictment, and so I'm not
I didn't see
assessing it
that
for
either.
purposes of probable
Right.
cause. Yeah.
I agree. I think it'd be evidence. I think it'd be pretty strong evidence personally. But like I said, it's unverified. I haven't been able to find a verification of that. So it was just more of a, I guess, hypothetical question, really.
Yeah.
And maybe this is maybe why I have a little bit of disagreement, maybe with the rest of the panel here. This is what I think is missing here with the KKK Act, and why I said that one I think is kind of particularly weaker, is because I am a big fan of journalists like Louis Theroux. Michael K. Williams did a lot of this stuff where he would, gonzo journalism is a thing where you embed yourself into the lifestyle of the people that you're documenting. And some of the best journalism, I think, happens by people doing this. And oftentimes, like when I'm, Louis Theroux, he's not furthering, whatever bad thing is happening, or Michael Williams, he's not furthering anything bad that's happening. They really are, documenting it. However, I do think that for me, that could be an argument alleged to maybe why there was a lack of the conspiracy requirement for the KKK Act. I think a jury could find that based on what GenZAttorney was talking about with, the statements that were being made, and everything leading up to the event. But for me, I think the reason why the FACE Act is stronger is I'm just not convinced that under a circuit precedent that a dual intent is required, that the ultimate purpose here needs to be that he had the purpose to disrupt the religious ceremonies for disrupting the religious ceremony's sake.
Then that would
Um,
get to Ahrelevant, where I'm sure he would have a lot to say about that and like concerns. Like if that's the case, if one, you've mentioned the issues on physical obstruction, and to just step back a little bit, guys, so you're aware, the conspiracy against rights, that's what Lactoid is referring to as the KKK Act. There's circuit precedent in some places where you can use as part of the conspiracy the right that's being deprived is a violation of the FACE Act. So they're all kind of like pointing towards
right.
the FACE Act. That's kind of the theory here. But what Lactoid is saying is you wouldn't need to actually show that Don Lemon wanted to oppress their rights, the enjoyment of their rights. You would just need to show that he physically obstructed. But then I'm like, hang on a second. Then any single person
Yeah.
who is like in the middle of any parishioner who's there, anybody who is like there who's arguably a victim of what's going on, who's like in some way impeding access or just sticking too long in a given place, they can't be liable, man. I mean, that can't be the reading of the FACE Act. And that would get to, I think, Ahrelevant's point. That would be so fucking broad.
Yeah, that's
The-
kind of why I brought up the MAGA person. Like, what if,
right.
like, is it just literally you cannot document this if there is at all any possibility that you could be like physically
Really, not even that. Not even
obstructing?
just that. Not even just the documenting thing. It would mean if you're physically obstructing at all, which has
Oh,
been
yeah,
found
true.
sometimes in very limited cases where you're just like offering a pamphlet in front of someone in front of the door and shit. It can be like
Mhm.
quite trivial, this physical obstruction. That would like arguably apply to some of the victims themselves because
Right.
the victims, to the extent that
Yeah, I
they're
would
like
disagree with that.
occupying the
To
main.
be clear.
Why?
Well, I just don't think that's sufficient enough for interference. I think that there's obviously some kind of bar for interference. You can't just be like, well, you're here taking up my oxygen, therefore you're interfering. There needs to
No,
be
but
some
it
kind of
can be such a.
the conduct
It
needs
can
to
be
rise to a certain level, in my opinion.
right, but it can be something as simple as, and it's been found in certain cases, as like a protester at an abortion clinic gets in
understand.
front of someone who's seeking an abortion and like presents a pamphlet to them.
And that's
And
why
that
they
is
have to like
so
hand it up to the side. Yeah.
yeah. So in those contexts, I'm like, that is way too broad. That can't be true. And
Well,
if that's true, then we have to be against this kind. We should be against it as a policy matter if that's the application. Because how do you distinguish in that case Don Lemon, without reference to intent, Don Lemon from like random parishioner who maybe is lingering near the entrance?
Well, I
So
think
to
real
respond real
quick.
quick.
Okay, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Lack.
Just to respond to the question. I think that where the too far happened was when the people who were handing out pamphlets, like that was deemed to be interference because they happened to be standing there for 2 seconds in front of the person, as opposed to like handing out to the side. I do think there needs to be, I guess, a certain threshold to that. And I agree with you that, what the threshold is for interference is, a tough question. But based on, so I was able to find an Eighth Circuit case that I think is relevant. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the the Hart case. That was an appellate decision by for the Eighth Circuit, in which somebody parked a Ryder truck out in front of a abortion clinic, and this was deemed to be a threat because a Ryder truck had been used in a car bombing at another abortion facility previously. And so this was deemed simply by the fact that the brand name of the truck was a Ryder truck, and he pulled out and over to the abortion clinic and parked there. That this was that he knew this was a threat. Like obviously, you still have to show intent. Like it can't be like, oh, I just own a Ryder truck and I was just parking here for some food. But that like he parked there knowing it was a threat, and he made the threat anyway. In that case, there really wasn't any kind of discussion as to like that his ultimate purpose needed to be some kind of like broader pro-life agenda or disrupting the ability to get abortions. It was that he knew it was a threat, he should have known it was a threat, and he did it anyway. And there was some evidence that he did know it was a threat. Now, if we read it, kind of, I think with the way that you guys are saying, or I guess maybe the whole panel at this point is saying that it should be read, which again is not, my understanding, has not been found in the Eighth Circuit. This would mean, I think, some equally kind of crazy hypotheticals you could run through. Like, so does this mean that if he parked his Ryder truck with the specific intention of threatening one of the doctors, knowing that it would disrupt abortion services, does that no longer count because he just had a personal animus against this doctor as opposed to some kind of broader abortion?
I want to be clear about how I would read it. Yes, that's how I would read it, because the spirit of this law was not meant to like protect abortion centers from attacks of like idiot ex-boyfriends or something. It was specifically to deal with threats of people who, on the basis of trying to interfere with their rights to get these reproductive services, or in the case of religious, like that's what I mean. Like it wasn't meant to apply to any obstruction in these different places or any kind of physical thing. It was those that are motivated by a specific intent to get at your rights, right? To infringe on your rights specifically, to prevent you from exercising these reproductive health services on those bases. But like, if it's not that, then it would seem to suggest that like, okay, if I'm preventing, let's say that we're having a domestic dispute between like a reproductive doctor or something and their husband, he's like, hang on, you're not going in there right now. Like, we have to settle this right now. And it's like a domestic dispute, like, okay, now it's a federal case in violation of the FACE Act. Like, that's what they intended to do. And I'm going to apply a rule of lenity there too, that like, it seems like the purpose of the criminal statute here was for people with the motivation to prevent them from exercising their rights.
No, I understand, but I think that there is like a level of latitude here that only makes sense if you view it, in my opinion, the way the Eighth Circuit viewed it in this Hart case. Because, the example of parking the Ryder truck because you had a problem with a specific doctor, but what if, in fact, you could prove that your purpose was something that is technically not fitting, but basically is? So what if, for example, you didn't actually like have any like purpose to like disrupt the abortions, but you just wanted the abortion doctors to feel scared because you thought they were possessed by the devil? Or maybe what else? What if you were paid to go do that? Well,
yeah, there's some line drawing.
Your motivation is money at that point. It's not actually you're just in it for the money.
I understand. There's a line drawing issue here about like what level of generality the purpose is, and I think that we need to draw lines somewhere. But I don't think it should be drawn at the level of like almost approaching strict liability, where the obstruction itself is enough. I will note that I'm reading the Hart Act decision. That's like a case interpreting the threat of force prong. But there's no good argument here that do you think that Don Lemon threatened force?
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that in the analysis of that prong, they don't go into like whether or not like what was the grander purpose of the threat, at least on my reading.
But that's the
I'm
action,
assuming that'd be the other two prongs.
No, yeah, that's that. So one, the
conduct is a
interpretation
threat.
about yeah, it's determining whether or not the parking of the car can be a quote threat of force, but that's not interpreting the intent prong. It's saying yes, in this case, right? He even though all he did was park a car, the Ryder trucks are commonplace vehicles. That's what he argued. But in this context, the jury could have, this is them, reasonably believed that parking the Ryder trucks in the clinic driveways in light of the surrounding circumstances constituted, quote, a true threat of force. Given the context and manner in which Hart placed the Ryder trucks and the reaction of the clinic staff and patients and others, we conclude that it was reasonable for the jury to find the Hart's conduct constituted a true threat of force. And they give a bunch of reasons for why that is based on the past history. But that's different than the purpose of it. And I think that
Yeah, but they don't go into
he
that.
probably
Just
did
to-
want to do it.
Yeah, just to
Well,
kind of
well, he did. Just to be clear, he probably did. Just to be clear, but
Right.
that's not elaborated on by the Eighth Circuit here as being a requirement, right?
Okay, just to interject because I think I want to get back, and I understand why
Yeah.
we're going down this line. But how does that, to my audience, perhaps Lactoid, and to the rest, how are we applying the standard to Lemon's case? So Don Lemon, what overt act that you say that he's doing that we should apply this standard to, and how does that fit?
Yeah, I think when you look at the totality of the circumstances, I think he was interfering with the overall procession. That he was, when he was interviewing the pastor specifically,
Okay.
the pastor was surrounded. Given the overall environment, there was people who were screaming. There were some people who were making some pretty horrific comments. There were definitely some people that were scared. There were people that were blocking the aisles. There were some people that were blocking.
Was it force, threat of force, or physical obstruction? Which one?
Physical? I think physical obstruction.
He wasn't
for-
using force, right?
No.
Okay. And it wasn't a threat of force.
I mean, I'm not going to say yes to that, but it just is more framed up as a question. When the dude puts his hand on Lemon and Lemon like kind of pushes his hand away, I don't think that necessarily fits force, but like in the most like autistic way, maybe it does. But I'm not going to hang my hat on that.
Well, there's
I would say interference. I would say interference is the one that Don.
That's
Lemon
not one of the
did when
elements.
he
The
was-
element is physical obstruction. So you're saying that he did physical obstruction.
I'm pretty sure it's interference.
It's two
No,
different
so
parts. The first element
Yeah.
is force, threat of force, or physical obstruction. That's element one of those three.
Mhm.
Intentionally, third element, injures, intimidates, or interferes with, or attempts to. And then fourth
Yeah,
is
or
inadvertent.
interfere. Or yeah,
But
by
you
force
need
or
one
threat
of
of
the
force or
first
by
three.
physical. Sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
physical obstruction would be
Okay.
Well, have you guys seen, I know there's the pastor interview, I think that's relevant, but there's a different interview where he's just interviewing a parishioner. It's like, it's near the door, still inside the church. The guy's like walking out, and I think it'd be good. I'll try and find it so we can watch it together.
If anyone wants to show a specific clip, give me a timestamp. Give me the video.
Yeah, I'll
timestamp,
try
and
and
we'll
find it.
pull up.
But just the broad strokes of it while I look for it, it's basically a guy who's on his way out. Don Lemon stops him for an interview. He says, "Hey, I want let's talk," and they start talking. But then as the guy starts to move towards the door again, Don Lemon kind of moves himself into his path because he doesn't want to give up the interview yet. So I'll pull it up and we can watch it. But like, to me, that's the example, probably the best example I could point to of physical obstruction of someone who is now inside the church still, so if not left yet, trying to leave, and now it's slight, it's not huge, but he is moving with him and kind of physically blocking him, impeding his ability to get out. But I'm gonna look for it.
Yeah,
Give me 1 second.
Ahrelevant's been trying to get in, so I want to give the
So I wanted to ask kind of a question off of what Lactoid was saying, because I just want to kind of get to the root of this. Is it not possible, let's say in the environment that Don Lemon was, is it not possible to ask the pastor questions? You just believe that, do you believe that necessarily to ask them questions in like an interview format, close range with a mic or anything like that? Do you believe that's just not possible because you're committing obstruction, because you're in a crowded, because the words so the words you're using is he's surrounded and stuff like that. But like Don Lemon isn't controlling these people. So it's like the argument that if somebody's surrounded, you're not allowed to ask them questions.
Yeah, I think no, you're part of the surrounding at that point. I think that the context matters. So if the person has no way of like escape, or like no reasonable way of like escaping without coming in contact with somebody, or if they reasonably feel like they're obstructed, which I mean, as Pisco brought up, like specifically with the FACE Act, this can be a wide range of things, and historically has been found to be a wide range of things, including standing in front of somebody to hand them a flyer. I think that when you look at this, I think that's too far, just to be clear, because you can just easily walk around them. It's only for a few seconds, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
in this case, where behind them is my understanding is behind the pastor is like the lectern, and then this other guy is really fucking close, and then Don is like kind of standing in front of him a little bit with the mic, and from what I'm watching,
There's an
he's
open
like
path.
trying to
There's an
ease the
open
guy
path,
up.
isn't there?
I
like there's an open
am
path.
seeing enough. I am seeing enough there for this to be much greater than standing in front of somebody with a pamphlet.
Well, the thing with the pamphlet is you take an active step. You're taking like an active step to like get in the middle of their path, as opposed to someone standing like to the side of them, not showing that intent to try to like to slow them down or whatever.
Yeah.
And
So-
here where you have alternative methods where it's just trivially easy for you to leave. I don't know.
It's trivially
Also,
easy to walk around
I-
somebody with a pamphlet. More so, I think.
I mean, I
in
guess
this
that.
case.
I mean, I guess that's true. Listen. If I had to go to bat on like one of the elements, I think how physical obstruction has been interpreted has sometimes been so trivial as to like, okay, fine, like maybe it's enough to do what Don Lemon did, but I just think like there has to be some teeth of the intent portion of it. Otherwise, any single type situation like this would like be a FACE Act violation, and that can't be right, even for people who are like aligned with with the people who are praying or the abortion doctors. Like imagine a doctor who's like standing at the door, technically obstructing, but like angry, like, what are you guys doing here? You guys need to get out of here. Like he would be guilty of the FACE Act violation because he was like, I guess, trivially blocking egress. That can't be right, man.
I think you could. I think it depends on the context, but I think in a situation you could have somebody who's like very angry, who's like blocking the facility to the point that people can't come in, and to get an abortion or to consult for an abortion, because to me, I think I believe that's like ultimately what the intent here is, to facilitate access to these places. And if you have somebody who is actively through these methods hampering that, remember, it's just a misdemeanor. We're not talking about a felony, right? The felony with the KKK Act, that's why I think that's quite a bit more serious.
Hi, I'm your common
But in this case, we're just talking about a misdemeanor. And I think that you can have scenarios in which there's plenty of scenarios. Again, if you're intentionally doing an action, which in this, if the doctor's like screaming and getting in the doorway and causing a commotion, I think that he could fit that definition.
Yeah, but what if he
in
wants
my opinion.
to? Yeah, but what if he wants to get the people out, right? Like, what if he's he's blocking egress because he's using force or threat in the hypothetical that I know is not the real case. He's using threat or force or whatever, or blocking egress with the intention of convincing them to leave. Like, you're stuck in here with me. If you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I'm gonna continue to block this door. You have 30 fucking seconds, and in like that time window, he technically is physically obstructing, but he just has the opposite intent. He wants to stop whatever is preventing entrance into the place. If there's no bite to the intent prong, it just seems like it will get in a bunch of innocent actors, even heroes, even potentially like the police.
We
right?
have we have a couple clips that people have sent me that they want to watch. Gen Z, is this a TikTok thing you want us to watch right quick?
Yeah, it's the guy. It's the clip I'm looking for. There's a guy who has some extra commentary. I can't vouch for what he's saying, but he doesn't talk much, but it shows the interview that I'm referencing. Yeah.
Okay, let's give it a watch. Once everyone's click the watch stream button, we can check it out. Okay, let's go.
Show you the video that I think is going to nail Don Lemon on FACE
All right,
Act
I'm watching.
charges. Okay, so my last video, I admitted I was wrong about not going after
Common
Don
sense
Lemon.
gay.
And one of the big things with the FACE Act is you're not allowed to obstruct. And he's claiming he's just a journalist. He says that many times in the video. I went and re-looked at the whole thing. Not an activist.
I know, right?
He's not participating. He's just a journalist.
You don't like sassy gay
This
guys?
interview with this parishioner, by
Yeah,
the
that's the
way,
problem.
all of the activists have left,
I'm detecting
and
some
Don Lemon
homophobia.
decides to interview him. This is
going
not
on?
gonna
What
look
is
good
that?
for
The
Don.
anti-gaydar? Would you call
We
that?
love the gays.
You know, while I agree with everybody's freedom to
This is how it
protest,
starts.
these people have come into our house and they've interrupted our worship. This is a house of peace, and we try to proclaim that. And this stirs division and rancor. And in the end, it's not helpful. Ultimately, I believe they've lost. They've emptied the house of worship.
So just to kind of set
Volunteer
this
interview.
Well, yeah, but just kind of set the scene of where we are right now. This looks like it's kind of a foyer but still inside the church property. But and you can't see it on this freeze frame, unfortunately. But he's not like directly standing between this guy and the door, but he's kind of like halfway. He's almost at a diagonal angle. Where certainly, if the guy wanted to walk straight ahead out the door, he would walk into Don Lemon's shoulder. Just to kind of set the stage as far as where we are right now. I agree, it's a voluntary interview, but it's the next part. You could probably skip ahead a little bit just to the guy tries to get out of the interview and walk out, and
the Americans reporting on a lot, and they're not targeted. There are no warrants signed by a judge, and let me finish. And they're American citizens, many of them. Most of the people that they detain don't have criminal convictions or criminal records.
I'm not going to get into the weeds. This is
you should know that, though. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yes, and I could also show you many opposing sides where we're also picking up the very criminals that have put Americans in danger.
He is very common sense.
And I'm not saying it's pretty. I'm not saying it's not messy. I'm not saying it couldn't be better.
Could be better.
I'm saying this is a part of a much larger dialogue in which one administration caused a great deal of chaos and havoc and danger for American citizens, and another is trying to correct that.
Do you believe that? Honestly,
Okay,
let me talk to you
listen,
just on
you're
the
not
facts.
a journalist.
Just saying, I want to give you the facts.
No.
Did you know that undocumented people and immigrants commit far less crime than American citizens?
We're done here.
Oh no!
Is this?
I feel like that's.
I doubt it.
Is this what you're talking about? This what you wanted us to see, Gen Z?
Yeah. I think, I mean, if you want to look at it just from the exit of the interview to the door, you can see. I don't know if the other door was locked shut or
undocumented
what.
people and immigrants commit far less crime than American citizens.
Yeah, I can't quite tell if the left door is locked or not, but it's like Don Lemon is like inserting himself into the doorway as he's walking with him, and such that he kind of even hits the left door as he's hitting Don Lemon with his right shoulder as they're walking out the door. I agree. It's not going to be your like aha the silver bullet slam dunk, but I think if we're looking for obstruction, this is probably going to be the best example we've got.
I think it's better than the interview. I mean, I would agree with you. I think it's better than the interview with the guy in there, for sure. Because of the literal case law we have on some people like standing in front of the doors and stuff. It's closer to the doors. It's closer to the exit. So I mean, I will grant you that it's better than I think the interview part. But even if I granted that it was a physical obstruction by under the statute, do you think that what we just saw there was, quote, to injure, intimidate, or interfere with a person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of worship? I don't think that you can make that case.
I would argue it's the opposite, but that's from like a normal person's perspective, and I would literally argue.
I want to hear that because it's going to be a jury ultimately. That's gonna if this goes.
Yeah,
to a jury,
give us your perspective, Normie. Ahrelevant. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my perspective is literally just that he seems to be interviewing this guy. You could argue he's a little bit combative, but he's trying to get his word out there. The reason why we have a lot of this footage or whatever is because he made it publicly accessible, right, through a live stream. So I would argue it's the exact opposite, that he's not trying to stifle the speech or anything like that of these people. At least that's what I'm seeing. That's what I feel like people would see here is just a dude who has his own opinions, which he's allowed to have, but also is trying to interview other people with different opinions. And it seems like one of the most consensual interviews I've almost ever seen. And then somebody just walks away and he lets him walk away.
So I think the reason
I think it's then.
Because where we are is like, and granted, I don't think there's a specific prompt of like whether we're arguing he'll be guilty or not, or versus just whether there's a basis for PC for arrest. But this is one of those things that is going to be looked at again, totality of the circumstances. Can we look at a situation like that and think at the very bare minimum, this is a factual question that a jury can decide. I think at the bare minimum you've got that. I do think.
Well, I think they can decide it, but the question is does it in your mind does it reach probable cause threshold, or do you think that based on what you've seen so far, beyond a reasonable doubt, that his intent was to obstruct their exercise of rights at any level of generality?
I mean, yeah, I'm just looking back at it again. It's like, yeah, he beats him to the doorway and is like standing in the doorway while the guy kind of has to push through him. And he doesn't put his hands up or anything, but like has to physically move through Don Lemon and get Don Lemon to open his body up to let him out. I know you're saying it's thin, which is better than saying, I guess, oh, this is ridiculous, this is nothing. Which, by the way, I know it's only our second time talking, but chill Pisco is kind of nice. It's fun to talk with you like this. No, but yeah, I think
because I understand the words you're using instead of like the the natural rights, like
Oh, come
American
on.
moral proposition. It
Okay,
doesn't mean anything. But
we'll keep it. We'll
no,
keep it.
I know. But I just want to say, like, I think that he should be charged with trespass. I think that's fine. Charge him with trespass. But I just like this statute has a hook which requires intent. And maybe I would like for some hitman or something or some bounty hunter who doesn't really care about the person, he just cares about the money. Maybe we could say that, okay, that's ridiculous. But there should be some level of evidence that he wants to interfere with their right to religious worship. And I would grant that it's a strong case for the other individuals in this place. I'm not unreasonable. I just don't think it's here. There's an alternative explanation that is predominating, which is he has a journalistic interest. That doesn't mean he didn't commit a crime. I don't think it's strong that he had the intent of First Amendment, even if you grant low bar physical obstruction.
So if we apply basically same situation, FACE Act, of course, applies to churches as well as abortion clinics. The best way I've kind of been trying to think through this whole issue and every step of it is like, okay, if this were an
What if
abortion
this was an abortion clinic? Yeah.
and this is Alex, and this is Alex Jones that is in there trying to interview the doctors and interview the patients there. And now you've got a patient who's trying to leave, and Alex Jones stops her, and hey, she agrees to the interview. Very, very cool. But then she's like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm not comfortable anymore. I'm trying to leave." And he physically moves. Like, right, he's a bigger guy, so that's one distinguishing fact. But he moves with her, and then partially blocks the doorway, such that she has to actually physically push and brush past him to get out. Are we saying that's not obstruction?
I would not. I think it's the case law on physical obstruction is way too light. I mean, that's my personal interpretation.
Light,
on the
sorry, real quick. Light meaning there's just not enough there, so we don't really know as a fact.
No, that people are they're allowing physical obstruction to be like trivial. I mean, the definition of physical obstruction in the statute is the term physical obstruction means, quote, rendering impassable ingress or egress from a facility that provides reproductive health services or to or from a place of religious worship, or rendering passage or from such a facility or place of religious worship, quote, unreasonably difficult or hazardous. And I don't think that what we just saw was rendering passage to or from such a facility unreasonably difficult or hazardous. And I don't think that of the Alex Jones example either. And I probably would be sympathetic to some of these abortion cases about physical obstruction. I'm not a hack in that respect. So I'm the first thing I'm giving you is my perspective is like, we have allowed physical obstruction to mean like regular pamphleting stuff or whatever is absurd. I think that that's crazy. And I don't think that that is what renders religious worship unreasonably difficult or hazardous in the term physical obstruction. I will continue on to adopting the case law. Yeah.
We might have some agreement then, just in terms of like a policy preference on the existence of the FACE Act. I mean,
so now let's assume the law as it is. Okay, so
right.
So as it is, I think that the intent, I will apply the same standard for Alex Jones. If I really thought he was just sympathetically anti-abortion and doing the interview, and he had no designs that I could prove to specifically stop people from getting abortions, then the answer would be yes, I'd apply the same standard, not FACE Act violations, charge him with trespass.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, I mean, yeah, as like a normal person just thinking of the hypothetical, like if you swap to the actors in there and you put Alex Jones in there, I would just say, yeah, I would just disagree with Alex Jones's opinions. I wouldn't, I literally think in my mind, I would never think that he's doing anything that should be illegal. I would just be like, oh, he's just kind of dumb for saying like anti-abortion stuff because I'm pro-abortion, but that's it. It would never go through my mind. That's against the law.
For me, this law is like about people like barricading doors or doing like a chain link hand to like prevent people from getting into the place, or going to a place where they know like some shit's gonna go down for the purpose of preventing it from operating. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking this is all about.
Yeah, I think that sorry, go ahead, Lactoid. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think the tough part here is, like I said in my intro, I do have some problems with the FACE Act and the KKK Act as they exist. But I guess the way I was thinking about this is going off of just what the Eighth Circuit is thinking, or I guess the precedent of the Eighth Circuit, but then also how this has been applied in abortion cases. And so if when we look at the sort of standard set up of like this is how the FACE Act is applied, of a bunch of people are in an abortion clinic and they all start singing against abortion or whatever, this is sufficient because they're kind of like a whole bunch of them crowding in an area. If there is,
we lost him.
I don't know if you want me to wait or keep going.
Give me a second.
I think while we're waiting,
Yeah,
I'll
while we're
answer.
waiting.
He's
Oh,
he's
here he is.
obstructing my
He's back.
ability to state my opinion right now.
He's back. He's back. We didn't kick him, gang. It wasn't me. Okay.
What happened?
You disconnected. I don't know why.
Wick kicked you.
I didn't.
You kicked me.
Fair enough.
Vic
He
wanted
admitted
blood.
to it.
Wait, wait,
I
wait.
was like, this is
can
too
Lactoid repeat?
boring. Oh, what?
Yeah, I can
Can
myself.
Lactoid repeat what
Yeah,
you said?
Lactoid, go ahead. Start
I
again.
guess
Singing.
what I was saying is when you look at the way the FACE Act has been applied in abortion cases, such that the people singing, like you said, people handing out pamphlets if they're standing in front of you for a few seconds, maybe. And then in this case,
but there the
specifically in
intent is
circuit,
clear, right? Like, yes, I understand on physical obstruction, but there the intent is clear. Like they want to stop these people from getting abortions.
No, but right, but what I'm saying is, okay. But again, in my opinion, that's not a critical element here. So I'm just looking at it in terms
I
of,
disagree.
I understand we disagree about that. But when you're saying, when you guys are saying, well, yeah, I think it is the standard here for. I'm specifically talking about the standard for physical obstruction, where you guys think it's far too light when applied to all these cases, and even threat a little bit in terms of this Ryder truck case. I think that. There's a little bit of a question there, right?
No, because that could be a true threat. That could be a true threat. Nothing that Don Lemon did is a true threat. No reasonable person would take any of the statements that Don Lemon made. I mean, identify the true threat. You can't do it.
No, I'm not saying that. No, again, I'm not saying that Don Lemon did a true threat. No, fair enough. I'm just saying that when it comes to specifically this Ryder case, we have because either a true threat or physical obstruction is sufficient to satisfy the FACE Act, right?
I'm just saying, let's get out of the true threat. I don't think that maybe you can make that argument for some of the protesters who were there and allegedly yelled at children or something or whatever that shit was. Maybe you could make that argument. Just like Don Lemon, I haven't seen anything that would constitute either force or threat of force. I don't think the kind of swatting away or whatever. But even granted, okay, if we have this kind of trivial physical obstruction case law and that's what we're going with, then and we don't worry about intent in any respect, then maybe there would be probable cause in that circumstance to do this. I would maybe grant that because probable cause is a low bar. But because I think that the intent prong has teeth, right? It's different in the abortion cases because what other reason are you fucking putting that pamphlet there? You know what you're doing there is because you want them to not do abortions, right? So putting aside the physical obstruction part, there is trivial. In the Alex Jones case, hypothetical, or in this situation, there is a plausible other alternative that we could actually believe, which is I'm here to document. I'm here to be a journalist. And I don't actually care whether or not they stop the service or not. What I care about is the journalistic endeavor.
So one
and
more.
Moreover,
go ahead. Finish.
One last question on that, if I could. If somebody was standing in front of an abortion clinic doors, and let's say they were blocking the door, right? And they knew for a fact that this was going to prevent people from being able to get in. And they were handing out pamphlets, but they weren't pro-life pamphlets. They were discounts to the local car wash. It was purely a market endeavor.
Yeah, I'll buy that bullet. I'd bite that bullet. Yes, not.
No, you don't think so? Okay, interesting.
I mean, that would be a fire hazard thing or something at that point, right? If you're just straight up wholly blocking. If you're wholly blocking the exit of a building, that just sounds like that's just straight up a
what if you're imagine that you're I agree with that, and there'd be other violations of law there, no doubt, right? But let's say that you're a hobo, and you're just you're so tired, and this is just the best spot from the rain, and there's just no other place that has cover from the rain besides the entrance to an abortion clinic, and so you go there being yeah, I don't give a shit if people aren't whatever, but I'm sleeping here because I'm just so fucking tired. You're FACE Act violation because he quotes.
If you intentionally obstruct.
Go for it.
But yeah, no. If it's you intentionally obstruct, if you have, if you know or should know that you being there is going to make it difficult, and I agree with you that it's way too light in terms of what that actually, according to case law, a lot of the case law, maybe not specifically in a circuit, but it's a lot of the case law that's way too light in terms of how they're reading that. But I do think that if you have, because the way I'm imagining this, and I understand we see this differently, but the way I'm imagining this is, the FACE Act was thought up of. Really, because in the States, this was during where Roe versus Wade was in effect, and or really Casey, but regardless, and you had states where abortion was legal, but you had a lot of people wanting to basically prevent people from going in, and the states there weren't really particularly apt, perhaps, to make it a priority to guarantee access to these people because as a state they disagreed with abortion. And so the feds were thinking, okay, well, we're going to make it, we're going to make it so that everybody in this country has access to abortion clinics. Regardless of what the state, what kind of, the political alignment of the state is and how that might prevent people from being able to go into an abortion clinic. And then the Republicans were saying, well, okay, if you're going to get that, then we got to get something too. And so then they added the kind of religious places of worship aspect of that as well. And what I'm thinking of is, well, that to me, the intention here is to guarantee access, right? And it's to put federal teeth behind making sure that these places have guaranteed access. And so if you have somebody who knows that they're going to cut off access, even if they don't have like a pro-life intent or like an anti-religious intent.
Oh, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, is it your conscious object? That's what I understand intent to be, like a purpose. Is it your conscious object to prevent them from having access to the? That can be pro-life. That could be pro-choice, right? And that actually has happened. People have been charged with respect to going to like the other reproductive health services that are like Christian related. They've been charged under the FACE Act, and they've been found. It's a viewpoint neutral law, and it applies to pro-life or pro-choice.
Oh, right, but I'm expanding it beyond that though, not just pro-life, pro-choice. I'm saying like. Again, the salesman example, the person handing out the pamphlets. If I don't think the feds, when they were coming up with this law, I don't think that they would, when they're trying to guarantee access to these places, that they would be okay, because these are very specifically designated places, right? Places of worship and abortion clinics. Apparently, for some reason, these places are above others, like in terms of this protection. It's very important.
Let's talk about the Commerce Clause for a second, because
this is ultimately my problem with the FACE Act, right? You're gonna get but they want to protect these specific places and guarantee access to these specific places. To me, it's perfectly rational to assume that they would apply this to people who, have commercial interests in blocking access or other potential interests in blocking access, like all the examples you were giving. Yeah, and again, from what I read on the limited Eighth Circuit precedent there is, which I totally understand can be argued, and it's not super dispositive. But from what I see, they're not really hyper fixated on the fact that this guy, that Hart was, that he was super pro-life. That like this was the intent of what that was the purpose of what he was doing. They were really focusing on the fact that that he knew he was making a threat. He should have known that he was making a threat, and then he was doing it, right? And so to me, if we simply apply that to physical obstruction, that would fit as well.
Okay, so that's my reading. I do want Ahrelevant to go in, but then I have another clip that was sent me showing apparently Don Lemon helping one of the protesters' cars that got snowed in. He helps it out of the snow.
That's what I was hearing about.
And we have a clip of this. And when they were going to the protest, he helps clear out a car. But we'll show it after Ahrelevant goes. Go ahead.
Okay, so you were talking about it like, well, that they're going to reasonably know that they would reasonably know that they're causing an obstruction, right? Mm-hmm. Where is it like that he's? Are you using the obstruction there in the loosest sense? Like, again, like kind of what we referenced before? Or are you trying to say that, like, it was reasonable to know that, okay, so then
No, it was reasonable to know that what he was doing, just to be clear. Like, if you are, like, standing in something that you don't know is in, like, blocking somebody, or that you don't know is an egress, or that, you don't know it's a church, like, if none of this is, like, known to you, then I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to prove that you had intent to, like, actually.
Do you think it was known to Don Lemon that he was obstructing anybody from leaving?
I think with that pastor, I think so.
The pastor?
The watch too.
And I think that I know you guys think it's stronger, and obviously reasonable minds can disagree. I personally think it's a little bit weaker, but I also think that video that GenZAttorney brought up is also evidence that.
So just to be clear, we're using the like rather because when I look at that, I don't see there's any of his actions being reasonably interpreted as the consequence being that he's in any way impeding the person's ability to leave. But I guess I'll take what you guys say, that obstruction has a very, very light legal precedent.
Before you play that clip, I just want to read real quick from this is from the Second Circuit. Quote, the statutes referring to a New York penal law which follows the FACE Act also incorporate a dual intent requirement. Defendants must have both an intent to injure, intimidate, or interfere, and a motivation to do so, quote, because the interfered with person was seeking, obtaining, or provided, or had obtained, or provided, or might obtain, or provide reproductive health services. The legislative history of the FACE Act notes that the requirement that defendants intentionally injure, intimidate, or interfere means that the defendant intends to perform the act and is aware of the natural and probable consequences. That's on that first part of the intent. Thus, as our circuit has recognized, even when a protester's goal is simply to share their beliefs through counseling or literature, the protester might still be liable for a FACE violation if they intentionally engage in acts which naturally and probably will injure, intimidate, or interfere with someone seeking or providing reproductive health services. So that's how I would interpret it. I would interpret it as needing to show the motivation because the person was seeking, obtaining, or providing, or had obtained, or provided, or might obtain, or provide reproductive health services. If it's not that, I don't know what the dual is about it, because then it's they're the same thing. It's just one intent with the intent to injure, intimidate, or interfere. And this case law, and I grant it, it's a Second Circuit. It's not necessarily the Eighth Circuit. So I would look for something that applies to the Eighth Circuit, but this is how I would want to interpret it, and how I want the Supreme Court to interpret it. I don't understand how you could have a dual intent with your reading of it. It seems like it would just be the one intent to interfere.
No, just to be clear, I disagree with the Second Circuit there. And the reason why I specifically said the Eighth Circuit, I was referring to the Eighth Circuit, is I'm not aware of the Eighth Circuit having any kind of similar analysis.
Got it.
I know that some courts have, and I didn't know it was the Second Circuit. I knew that there was some circuit that did have a case on something similar to that. So Second Circuit, fair enough. I just
lib. That's what that was. Lib Second Circuit, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay. Let me show this clip to you guys, and we'll see what people have to say. Give me a second. I'll watch the little screen here. And to be clear, this is about 13 minutes into his live stream, so they hadn't even reached. They are yet to reach the church. They do so in about 30 minutes from this timestamp here.
Are they in heaven? What the fuck is it? Pure white.
No, man. I don't know where you're from, man, but that's what snow looks like.
The sky is white.
You're clearly not from the Midwest. You don't know what it's like.
Okay.
Oh, this is crazy.
Let's watch this shit.
There we go. Oh, back up.
Oh, it's like exposure.
She's got a rocket. Yeah. Oh, it's stuck. She's stuck on that mound right there. Yeah, she's stuck on that mound. That's not gonna come off. That's not coming off.
Yeah, you gotta check that out.
Yeah, she's stuck on the mound. This is what happens. So we're showing all of it.
Don, I love your work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're on right now, just so you know. But so don't give anything away. No. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's stuck on this mound. You got to rock it. Watch your hands. Look out.
Oh my God.
Look out. Get out of the way.
You're gonna have to go backwards. It's already on the top of the floor right there. You have to go backwards.
Yeah, go backwards.
I've been told this
This means Don wants to interfere with religious liberties. I find this so equivocal, so consistent with other motivations that don't mean that he's part of a criminal fucking conspiracy, such as making sure no one gets hurt, making sure that the individuals who are there are able to get out of the snow, because he doesn't want them to be stuck in the snow, not necessarily because he wants them to oppress the civil liberties of the individuals in the church. I just think it's equivocal. It's open to multiple interpretations.
Not only that, but there was something that Pisco said earlier when talking about Alex Jones that I wanted to compound off of, where it was like, if Alex Jones was doing the identical thing, do I think that he would be trying to obstruct an abortion clinic? I would literally think it would be the opposite if you had to ask me. And the reason why is because I would expect that Alex Jones would be rather careful about trying to do anything that could be like obstructing somebody's ability to undergo their way, because this dude just makes a lot more money and gains a lot more clout by just recording people and then editing it. Opinion about Alex Jones, he's not fair reporting, but he makes more money doing that. So my first assumption would be the exact opposite. He's trying to just get clips. He's trying to farm this person. And that's what I would assume Don Lemon would be doing, is his first priority would be get clips, go viral.
Here's the question. Here's the key question, okay? Here's the key question. All right, and you guys can answer. If Don Lemon were vetted with this group, and this group went to not a church, but went into the person's house to occupy his house a little, do you think that Don Lemon, in that context, would still have the motivation to interfere with religious rights? In other words, he would have gone wherever these guys were going to go, right? He didn't. He was following this group because they were protesting. He wasn't following this group because they were going to go to a particular place that we know of based on evidence. He wasn't following them because he knew for certain. Maybe he knew where they were going, in the course of it. But that's not why he was following them. He was following them because they were protesters about to do a thing. And if they had done this at a shopping mall, if the guy had worked at a Foot Locker and they were doing the same kind of stuff, Don Lemon would have been there.
I gotta be real with you guys. I thought the case was going to be stronger than this against Don Lemon. Can you guys give me like the strongest evidence you have?
So yeah, to answer Pisco's question real quick, I don't think that applies just because it's not face hack, because we're no longer talking about house of religion or the church.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just trying to say, like, his purpose, he wasn't following these people because they were planning to do the religious things. Now, the people, I think, were trying to disrupt and arguably, the religious freedoms in that sense. So I think it's a much stronger case against them, against the protesters themselves. But I don't think that was driving Don Lemon's motivation. I think the protesters were trying to make a statement that was actually filled with religious significance to it, and they knew where they were going, and they picked it they picked it purposefully. I don't think that's true of Don Lemon.
I think, real quick. I think unfortunately, I think he's got too many statements and comments indicating he does know where they're going. Of like saying like,
I know he knows where they're going. Yes.
Okay.
I say he knows where they're going, but like if they were going to some other place, it's not like he for Don, it really mattered that it was a church or something else. Where the protesters, it really did matter that it was a church, right? What Don was documenting was the nature of a protest that was about to happen. And if they had at the last minute like changed it or whatever, his purpose would still be consistent. Now I think the protesters themselves, they picked this place purposefully, and they picked it because they knew it would make a big stink, and probably because they wanted to interfere with their exercise of religious freedoms. Now, is it because of their exercise of religious freedoms? I think there's a pretty good argument for that, right? They're making these kind of religious appeals. He's the devil. He's like, why are you worshiping here, right? So things like that, right? That I don't really hear Don say as much, and certainly that there's evidence prior that he wanted that outcome to occur. That's kind of what I'm saying.
I see. Yeah, and the thing about that is there's enough clips of him still of actually making actual Christian religious references as well, because almost everyone he interviews talks about like, man, we're here to love Jesus, we're here to worship Jesus, and he'll respond back, I'm a Christian too, and I think what's going on is just completely horrible and terrible and unchristian. And so, and I think too, I was watching today, the Warren Smith Secret Scholars guy, he had a guy on his show who says he had a phone call with Don Lemon before all of this happened, where he was told basically ahead of time where they were going to go, what they were going to do. And so
I don't doubt that. Yeah, I think he knew about it.
So specifically that it was a church. Whether or not Don Lemon was on board specifically because it was a church, I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that. I can see kind of to the point you're making. I could see him saying, "Oh, we're going to a church. Oh, I'm a Christian. I can make some statements and comments to the parishioners about my own Christian faith and whatnot." But
here's the example.
Couldn't you say that same thing about the other protesters?
Go ahead, Lactoid. I'm going to let you finish, but then I've been given other timestamps that show stronger evidence, so we're going to go through.
Sure. So. Well, I guess to push back, wouldn't like because in my mind, my understanding is the protesters chose this place not necessarily because of their hatred of the Christian faith, or because they had like a problem with the purpose of the church itself. This specific church itself, even they had a problem with the fact that one of the pastor was apparently affiliated with ICE. So whether this pastor was at a church or whether he was a clerk at a supermarket, it would seem as though they'd be doing the same thing either way. And so my question is, why? Yeah, why do you think
might
the case
extend to
against
them?
The protesters is stronger?
Yeah. So first of all, that argument might extend to them in their favor, because I think that I would interpret it the stronger way, which is to say that you need the specific because motivation. But that said, the reason I think it's stronger is whatever level of tailoring there is to Don Lemon specific motivation, it's stronger for the protesters who did seem to have some decision of wanting to make an impact, of wanting to cause a stir, and that stir I think is related to the churchiness of where they're going, in a way that I think is easier to isolate and to extract from Don Lemon than it is for the protesters who presumably selected this location for that purpose. Now, ultimately, I don't know how the Eighth Circuit. I want to do some more specific research in the Eighth Circuit specifically, but no, yeah, I think that an example of this might be the following, and I would like to see what your take is on it. Suppose that we knew for a certainty that the reason why who's this guy from Project Veritas? O'Keefe embeds himself into a group or whatever, and he knows that these priests are like these horrible Pizzagate type people, and he goes to expose them and to show the video of like them doing the Pizzagate stuff in front of the parishioners or whatever, these kinds of people. Is it really? Did you really think that those kinds of acts would constitute a motivation to interfere with the people seeking, obtaining, or providing religious services? I'm not so sure. I think that in that case, we would say that's not why he did it. He's doing it because they're abusing children and he wants to expose them. He wants to get their reaction. And that's when he decided to go do it. In other words, I think the intent component is a bigger deal than you do. And I would put a lot more teeth in it than you do. And I think that's why
I think let you respond to that. Then we gotta watch one of these clips. So.
I think that the way you're looking at this is kind of as you read kind of how the Second Circuit is looking more at it, where the second prong here of the dual intent is really important in your analysis. For me, I mean, I would just answer, I guess, that your specific hypothetical. I think that could, depending on what O'Keefe's actions are, that could potentially fit under the FACE Act. It could, and yeah, you can sometimes do illegal actions for noble goals, right? You can hack somebody's computer if they have CSAM on it. That doesn't necessarily mean that the hacking is legal, and you uncover something much more illegal, right? But just because you discover something more illegal doesn't.
But it would mean that any physical obstruction with the intent to intentionally interfere would be a FACE Act violation. And so the intent is just to interfere. You're basically suggesting that it's not a dual intent, it's a single intent to interfere. And that I think that's a reading. And if that were the case, maybe there would be probable cause. I might grant that.
Okay.
I still don't think you should have charged.
Okay.
And I think real quick, just a final thought on that. And what I would bring up as well, even if something can technically fulfill every element of the crime, I don't think we can completely discount prosecutorial discretion just as to look at a situation and be like, all right, yes, maybe look, as a prosecutor, I did this myself. There were cases that fulfilled every element of the crime, but I decided to drop the case for any number of reasons. And so I think I agree, Pisco, you're raising a lot of correct technical observations about how the law can be applied in different cases. I just don't see it getting applied into an actual criminal prosecution in a lot of it.
No, but maybe that's the case. But then let's deal with that, because Ahrelevant will have something to say with this as well. This is absurd. It's insane because Pam Bondi is directly ordering this prosecution, even though the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office is being hollowed out because they don't think this is a strong case. And it's obviously being motivated because they see all the Twitter fucking shit and they're responding to it in real time. And so this has all the fucking makings of the same political motivation that drive the Comey indictment, the same kind of motivation that drive all these other efforts, which a lot of them, the sandwich thrower, for example, you can make an argument that was forcible or whatever, but it was a stupid case to bring, and it was being incentivized by the worst kind of actors on Twitter. And so just from a discretion perspective, this is a stupid waste of resources to go after Don Lemon. Maybe not the other protesters, but it's bound to be wrapped up in issues of journalism, and it's bound to be motivated by political concerns, and that's why you have Pam Bondi going in to sign off on this specific case against Don Lemon and hollowing out the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I want to get to just in a moment, but just to be clear, after the clip, that's the line I want to go down, is like how much of a threat to journalism regardless of whether Don Lemon's guilty or innocent or whatever, the way that this is being handled, is this a threat to journalism? Is the Trump administration threatening the First Amendment, et cetera? So just keep that in mind. Do you want to respond now? You can, but otherwise I would ask that you keep it in your pocket.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, just before I lose it.
Yeah, before you lose it, go ahead.
Thank you. My understanding is that this was a grand jury approved this. I know that's super low bar, but I just want to point that out. It wasn't just Pam Bondi that made the executive decision.
She's like the
here.
one making the decision, is what I'm saying, to do the
Okay, fair enough.
case. That's what...
And I think what makes me feel better about that aspect of it, in terms of because you're right. There's a level of discretion that we want prosecutors to have. Like, technically speaking, if like the worst example I can think of is, like, technically speaking, if like a minor was to rape an adult woman, she would be guilty of statutory rape. And like, technically she could be charged and she'd meet the elements, but that'd be fucking crazy. So like, please, prosecutors, don't do that.
What is it
Even
with
though technically that is
libertarians
the law.
and age of consent? What is it with libertarians and age of consent?
It's like 18's good. Anyway, so
That's crazy. That's a crazy soundbite.
No,
18 is good. 18 is good. That's a pretty reasonable soundbite, I think. But what I'm just saying is, there's obviously scenarios that we want people to exercise discretion in. In this case, though, because like, what makes me feel better about it is, I think all of us already agree that Don Lemon should have been arrested for trespass at the very least anyway, like a different misdemeanor. So he should have been arrested for a misdemeanor that he's probably not going to get arrested for. So he's getting arrested for like a different misdemeanor.
Yeah, you should be like angry at Minnesota. You should be angry at Minnesota. You should be angry at like Keith Ellison.
Trust me, I am.
I'm angry at Keith Ellison for other shit too. But like, also, can we just be honest here? Like, this whole shit, they don't actually give a fuck. And I want to get to Wick's thing, but like, they pardoned all the Jan fucking Sixers. Like, it is insane that we live in this environment that we have to pretend that our conservative people like have this principled stance against obstruction and technical violations of the law all the time. And like, so I have had it with like all of the pearl clutching and stuff. Did they commit trespass? Yes. Did they probably commit the FACE Act violation? But turning this into like a broader, oh my God, Antifa conspiracy, KKK Act, I think that's a bit absurd.
Okay, let me pull up what we got.
I have a response to that as well, but we're gonna wait. So.
Yeah. I was told to go to this timestamp, 050. We're 7 seconds behind it, but I think that'll be fine. And this was shown very strong evidence, I've been told, of conspiracy. So we'll see.
These are
just going to say the same thing of
planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going and where we're gathered right now. However, and then we're going to head over to Whipple. And we're just going to show you what's happening on the ground, not just all the chaos that you see at Whipple, but just how people are fighting back, how they're organizing, how they're strategizing, and they're doing this in large part without support from officials, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's I think that's helpful evidence in favor of Dawn. I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
The fact that she's a known person, that he has known her for a while with respect to like these other different protests and activities that she did, I think indicates that she's newsworthy. She's like has a track record of doing this kind of stuff. And so it would make sense for him to have a journalistic purpose and embedding himself. It's not like it's just a random group that he's like organizing or whatever. And again, the whole let's not reveal, as I think Lactoid and I agree, that is very much, again, a plausible explanation is the give and take of embedded journalists. That they don't, in order to have this access, they agree to the access with conditions, right? They get to information with conditions, with just like fucking Louis Theroux would. And so, yeah, I don't think that any of that is inconsistent with the rationale that I'm pushing here.
I think I'd point out what's interesting, just hearing that clip in particular. It's because I really listen for the pronouns. Maybe they're not pronouns. I don't know. Either way, the theys versus the we's, and how there's kind of a mix. And I try and listen real closely to say, is he ever referring to this group as a they group for the events of that day. And best I can tell just from that clip, I was listening specifically for that. Yes, he used they a couple times, but every time he used they, he was referring to past things that they'd done. Every time he was referring to the day of, it was a we. We are going to this. We can't tell you what it is, but we are going to go up and pull up somewhere and disrupt something. So I think that's notable. Once again, I'm not saying anything is open shut, slam bang, slam dunk. But if we're arguing about totality of circumstances, taking every piece in, that's something that I would point out. And maybe it's the classic Freudian slip, but him using the we the way that he does, I think it's a point showing his involvement with the conspiracy.
Okay,
Ahrelevant.
I wanted to just get to, because I feel like I've heard. I was very curious where Wick, his line of questioning of like, what is your strongest piece of evidence? And I feel like I've gotten a decent amount of it, maybe not all of it. I want to hear very specifically, okay, is it possible to do this ethically, to embed yourself in a group like this ethically from your perspective? Is it possible to do it ethically, legally? And if it is possible to do it ethically, legally, what very specifically did Don Lemon do that crossed the line into illegal?
Yeah, so I think yeah, it is a good question. And what I brought up earlier is the live streaming component of it, and we haven't really talked in detail about what makes that different versus an embedded journalist who's there, who's taking footage, and then after the fact, they're able to edit it and put it together and then choose what the world gets to see. The fact that this is a live stream, I think, is a material fact here, because now we don't have that editorial control over what's going to get shown. It's just, here's what it is, here's what we're showing, and the fact that he had to take steps against that. Now, granted, I cannot point you to any sort of precedent where someone was with a terrorist group and live streamed it, other than maybe the Houthi kid, Monkey D. Houthi. But aside
I think that's a great example. No, I think that is a great. That's the Hassan interview, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking about this with Relly yesterday, and I'm like, those are the kinds of things where I'm concerned with, for example, applying the material support statute of against foreign designated terrorist organizations, even assuming the Houthis were designated at the time, which they were not, in this kind of manner, when there's a purported journalistic purpose. I almost think that the case against Hassan, assuming that they were FTO at the time, would almost be stronger than the case against Don Lemon in this case, given that like they have specifically said you're not allowed to give legal services to like foreign terrorist organizations. You're not allowed to like give food and stuff necessarily to FTOs in this kind of a situation because of the effect on displacement of funds and all that stuff. So this is precisely, I think, the problem is we ought not interpret these statutes as happening in socially useful journalistic activity. And that's why Relly's question is so good. And the only difference, or if one of the key differences is, well, this was a live stream, and so if he hadn't live streamed, I would count that in his favor. It just feels like kind of arbitrary. Like live stream is how a lot of journalists now communicate these days. There's been breaking live coverage of these kinds of events for years and years. And you go, sorry.
Oh
yeah, like what if it was like a CNN reporter, like doing it like live on TV? Like
he was at one point.
Yeah, it literally was. Like, would it be like, okay, well, yeah, it's illegal. Like, I just want to make sure we create, because with the law, I would hope that we, and especially over something like this where it has First Amendment implications, that we try to be very specific to avoid the issue, because I think we all agree that there is a possible issue of like preventing people from feeling like they can cover very like controversial things.
Issue,
yeah, a chill issue. So is live streaming the issue? Like, so you can't do it on TV, you can't do it on like YouTube streaming or anything like that?
Yeah, what if, and I'm not saying this is what happened here, we may learn this is something that happened here, but what if there was an agreement between them specifically to say, we want you along because we want your stream, we want the eyes on our movement and on our cause, and he agrees to come along as part of like, yes, I will provide that for you and for your movement. Is that not sharing intent to basically follow through on this criminal act?
Dude, yeah, so you're saying in exchange, sorry, go ahead.
So I don't know, but I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to know in regards to case law or anything like that. But isn't this the case with like certain like terrorist groups? There will be like reporters who are embedded in, and they'll be like, "Hey, we want to show some of our exploits or whatever," and they'll like document it, but they'll also like try and document it within like their journalistic ethical practices. I think this happens.
And I think we can judge that through journalistic standards as far as like, okay, what are they actually doing? Are they just riding along to show how great and awesome Hezbollah or the Houthis are? And that's the only condition that they're going to allow a journalist to come along, is because they want to launder them into the public view as a more favorable group versus a journalist who's actually going to be fair and do a both sides fair reporting. Because I think that's one of my points I'm arguing here, that I think is a relevant fact, is that Don Lemon in his interviews is showing that he has a clear bias here, and also in his after the fact, his
sympathetic, no doubt.
Yeah, and after the fact, when he's saying that the church was a congregation of white supremacists, it's like I think those are highly relevant facts as to his state of mind, his intent for why he was there and why he was doing what he was doing.
I think go for it, Robert Riley.
I think that tailors back into with the clip that kind of we just saw, just that he knew the person running it, she had merit according to him, and that he thought that like highly of some of their previous exploits. But I just want to hear specifically I just want to hear a little precisely from both of you, what exactly did he do wrong that can be done in an ethical fashion if you're doing this right along?
And what would he have had to have done?
Yeah, so live streaming is a no. What
not
else?
been sympathetic?
Can he? Yeah.
If we're talking about, because my thing is what does he have to do? Because now you're talking about a question of journalistic standards, right? So it's so what would he have to do to comply with journalistic standards? Yeah, I would argue a big part of that is showing both sides in as fair a light as possible to maybe ask the organizer, like, hey, do you have any concerns that this might be against the law or criminal, that what we're doing here? No, it's hey, I love what you're doing. Let's go do it. Like, I think I can't, maybe we just disagree on how significant that is, but like.
Well, I have a problem with that, though, for the same reason that I have a bit of a problem with the interpretation of like really focusing on the purpose. Because to me, that raises more First Amendment issues than otherwise.
Can you only cover an event that you dislike, right? Like,
right. Journalists, like in my opinion, I think the First Amendment protects journalists. They can be hacks. They can be partisan. I also think there's a problem with the First Amendment if somebody does the exact same act, but like their greater purpose is different than somebody else's, but it's the same act. So that is, and for the same reason that I said before, that I'm not buying, this kind of the dual intent purpose aspect. This is one of my biggest problems with the conspiracy aspect, which is, there's a lot there that he says that agrees with the protesters. I think he does. I think he agrees with the protesters. I think he agrees with their message. But to me, that's not sufficient for conspiracy.
I just want to say, for Lactoid's point, is very, very salient. When you put a question about like whether this is criminal turns on whether he was applying best practices journalistically, you're going to have an issue, because now the court is going to have to get into what is good standards for journalists. That's almost like a policy question that the profession needs to decide for itself. And I think that Lactoid's uncomfortable with putting a court in a determining role there. That's why I think the object of the inquiry of the court or the fact finder needs to be simple. Did Don Lemon have as his conscious object the desire to, with respect to the conspiracy, to bring about a deprivation of rights under the FACE Act? And that's the inquiry. And I think that you need to provide enough evidence to suggest that that was what he wanted to do. Not whether he adhered to journalistic standards, but whether or not he had that intent. And maybe that will turn on, I think it's relevant if he's biased. I think it's relevant to his intent. I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but I'm just trying to say that the focus of the inquiry should be, what did he want to occur? What did he want? Did he want this to occur?
Oh, I think he probably did.
Well, let me.
Can you prove it? Can you prove it? That's the question.
Maybe you guys can help. I mean, look.
What if? Hold on. Can I ask a question? What if even if he wanted this to happen? Like, say he really wanted this protest to go down. Okay, he
agreed to. Yeah, he agreed to do it because because the question that was asked by GenZAttorney was like, well, what if he had this agreement? Yes, you'll help us with our object and our aim. And Raleigh brought up an example. Well, what about the journalists who embed themselves with Al-Qaeda? And Al-Qaeda, they know that Al-Qaeda is using this for their purpose, but there's still the journalistic purpose behind it. And so, yes, but you would need to show the agreement part. But we would judge differently a journalist who goes to Al-Qaeda to interview bin Laden if they share the object of bin Laden, which is to give material support to Al Qaeda versus to tell the world what Al Qaeda is saying for the purpose of journalism.
Yeah, but I don't think we.
It's not a proof that the inverse is
just
the
real quick,
inverse is a
I don't think we
disproof,
would.
right?
I don't think.
Well, that's my point exactly.
Stop. Like if you had someone who was pro Al Qaeda or whatever, and they were a journalist and they wanted to cover bin Laden, would that be illegal?
Not necessarily.
No,
But what we're saying is like we know that he's vehemently anti bin Laden. Then like the kind of gray decisions or gray actions that like the jury's being asked to interpret.
we
What
might
the
interpret
intent
it
is,
differently.
they might interpret that because like how could we interpret him as helping bin Laden if we know for a fact that he hates bin Laden?
Yeah,
'Cause
but
I think
I guess what I'm struggling with, I'm gonna let you go, Jens.
It's not dispositive, but it is relevant.
Yeah, I just what I'm struggling with, like, is even if he wanted the protest to occur, he's like, yeah, it's a good idea that you go and protest. I don't know if that matters.
No, but think about it with Trump. With Trump, it'll be so easy because think about with Trump. Trump was also charged with a conspiracy against rights and KKK Act. Part of the evidence of Trump's intent is clearly protected speech, right? Clearly that he thought the election was stolen. He said so, and he's allowed to say so. And Jack Smith made it clear he's allowed to say so. So notwithstanding the fact that part of his speech is protected, we can still consider that in trying to interpret,
I suppose,
the liable actions that constitute the criminal conspiracy. So all that's being said, and I concede it, that it's relevant to look at the sympathies, but I just don't think it's dispositive. And in this case, if you were to show me like, yeah, this is great, awesome, amazing, wonderful, like beforehand, and him like being critical to the plan, we need 3 cars, then I'm like, okay, this is all conspiracy stuff, and the journalistic stuff goes away.
But I think so. Okay, 2 points. I think the point you just made about bin Laden and how like it is important. The distinguishing factor, if you've got someone who is embedding themselves, who is there to just report what's going on behind the scenes, versus someone who's clearly pro bin Laden and is there to basically cut together propaganda reels. At that point, I'd say the person who's there and supportive, would we not count them as part of this terrorist group at this point?
I think that would be a situation of material support. Yes.
Okay.
But
yeah.
It turns on.
Wait, are
What is
propaganda reels
what is
material
conscious
support?
Yes.
So, well,
Yes.
without going
how does that not just like brazenly run afoul of the First Amendment at that point? Like if I support Al Qaeda, I'm allowed.
The case is called Holder versus Humanitarian Law Project, I think is the case, and it's a material support provision is constitutional. One of the first.
I don't want to get
and that includes propaganda, like speaking your mind if it happens to agree with them.
No, there needs to be some element of coordination. There needs to be some element. So independent statements that have no connection to being an agent or the selling of services. Holder versus Humanitarian Law Project does not reflect independent statements. It doesn't at all. So that's why Hassan can say all he wants about the Houthis. If you can't show that there's some sort of connection between his conduct and what the Houthis do in the causality there, you're not going to hit the material support provision. But I'm accepting as good law holder for purposes of analyzing this.
I don't want to go all the way down the analysis on that point. My point for bringing it up is maybe you can see the analogy I'm drawing here, is if we're having someone who claims to be a journalist but is embedding himself with a terrorist group and is there for the purpose of furthering the goal of the terrorist group by cutting together these propaganda reels, versus someone who's there to just fairly report and kind of give you the behind-the-scenes sneak peeks. If you've got the former there, that's the analogy I'm drawing to Don Lemon, who, yes, he's making the claim that he's just there to report the story and be objective and be neutral. But I think we've all agreed here, no, he's at the very least sympathetic, if not, my point is that I think he is outright furthering or assisting this whole thing in happening. So that's the
analogy. He even said holding accountable. He said they go and help hold people accountable is his specific verbiage, I'm pretty sure.
That's what
we
they
just heard
do.
in the video.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
The reason though that I think this analysis of journalistic standards comes into play, and this is where maybe you guys can educate me a little bit as far as so prosecution proceeds. He makes defense. He claims the defense for this is my free speech, freedom of the press, First Amendment right. Is that being raised as an affirmative defense? How exactly is that getting raised? You guys can help me out with that.
I think it's as applied, and I don't think it's that strong. And the reason I say that is because he's not. If he's charged by this, it's not because of what he said. That might play into the analysis of what his intent was, but they're not regulating his speech as such, and they're regulating whether or not he came to a conspiracy. So just similar to Trump, right? Trump's speech, this is the argument that Lib said, no, they're not just going after Trump because of his First Amendment. It's because he entered into a criminal fucking conspiracy, which had an unlawful objective. And the speech is evidence that tends to show the existence of a criminal fucking conspiracy. And so I think that the First Amendment concerns are all like kind of ancillary, which are like, if this were enough evidence to show it, it would chill valuable speech, because then the standard would be like too low of a bar.
So,
but I don't think that there's a really strong First Amendment. They're probably going to raise it. I'm open to other arguments, but yeah.
I'm gonna let you respond, Gen Z. Then I do want to get to my last kind of line of questioning.
Okay, sure.
Right.
Yeah, can I also answer a relevance question from earlier when we get a chance?
Yes,
I don't think I ever answered that
right
correctly.
after Gen Z, we can do that.
Yeah, and just to summarize where I think you're saying, Pisco, correct me if I'm wrong on anything. You're saying that your view is that, simply put, there's no prima facie case, the elements have not been met. But even if they were, then that gets us into the First Amendment analysis. What you're saying is not the strongest, but at least can be brought up as a, because it's not necessarily speech I'm pointing to.
As applied challenge.
Yeah, as applied for basically, he gets to say, even if the elements were there, it doesn't apply to me because the First Amendment gives me freedom of the press. I have these freedoms.
It's just going to be tough, though, because like there's no First Amendment right. The FACE Act is constitutional by every court that's examined it, and if that's constitutional, then how can, or to criminalize that, how can a conspiracy to do a lawful crime, how can that be against the First Amendment? Like, it just seems to be a natural sort of follow-on that if the FACE Act itself is facially constitutional, if you make a violation of the FACE Act, I don't know why a conspiracy to do the crime that's constitutional to criminalize would be the same kind of First Amendment issue.
The question is, what's conspiracy, right? That's really the question.
Right. So, but that's just going to get into like, yes, statements can be conspiracy, right? If I agree with, that could be evidence of the agreement. The agreement is almost it's a thought crime, right? The crime is that you had a thought, a meeting of the minds, and that you agreed. But the evidence of that crime is speech, is overt acts, and shit like that. So yeah, it's I don't think it's a particularly strong First Amendment case. The First Amendment interests are on why he's being charged, which I think is political, and on if this is found with the amount of evidence we have as a violation, how it will chill other kinds of speech that we find valuable. That's where I think the First Amendment fight should be.
And we will get into that, but I do want to give Lactoid a chance to answer Ahrelevant's question before we get into that.
Yeah. So very briefly, because I'm not really defending, I suppose, the conspiracy aspect of this right now. I'm talking more about just like how the FACE Act as applied. I believe in the Eighth Circuit. I think that if you're going to go, first of all, you're going to go protest and disrupt on somebody's private property, I would immediately say, don't do that. It's trespassing, right away. So don't do that. But if you're going to do it to an abortion clinic or a place of worship, you got to be really fucking, definitely don't do it. You got to be really fucking careful. And if you're probably going to have to eat some kind of trespassing potentially. But if you want to be, if you choose to do this anyway, you're going to have to be, I think, hyper vigilant. You're going to have to be very vigilant and understanding that, okay, I'm going to be very careful not to block people's way, because how this is applied is, if I'm standing in front of somebody handing pamphlets, that could be enough. So okay, I have to not do that, right? And pro-life organizations, they internally, they're already, they talk about this, right? They'll issue newsletters and updates like, here's what not to do, because they're going to get us with the FACE Act. So make sure you're handing it off to the side. Make sure you're not standing in front of any road, pathways. Make sure that you're giving people room to leave and walk, and you're not making people feel trapped, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, make sure you're doing all these things. I mean, that's would be my advice, right? If you want to try to avoid, I guess, doing the further crime of violating the FACE Act here, just you got to be hyper vigilant. Don't stand in front of people's way.
So the problem that I'm having is like just kind of the specifics. So I wanted kind of specific examples. So like in the case that in the video that we watched where Don Lemon is like, off to the side of somebody, and I understand that there's debate as to whether or not he was like kind of blocking him or not while he was walking out. Are those the margins that we're going to work with as to whether or not somebody, and you believe that that's like good, that is, we ought to do this?
I have a problem with the FACE Act.
That like 5-degree tilt of your body is like with the margins we should be working with.
Well, let me be very, because there's kind of two conversations happening. So let me just try to make this very clear. In terms of the FACE Act, yeah, you're going to have to give a lot of space to people and be hyper vigilant. If you were to ask me, Lactoid, if you had the opportunity, would you get rid of the FACE Act and the KKK Act and a whole bunch of shit under the Commerce Clause tomorrow? I would. All right. I mean, I would be wiping out a lot of this stuff. Probably a lot more than anyone here in the panel would be comfortable with, frankly.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Sure, right. There's, so if you're asking me, do I think that it's a little bit, the FACE Act as a law, as it's been applied, as it works, do I think that even the intent to some degree, actually, do I think that all this is a bit ridiculous? Sure, fair enough. But when you're looking at the way when you're looking at the act, when you're looking at how it's been applied, and Pisco's right, every court that's looked at this says it's not running afoul of the First Amendment. So yeah, I mean, be hyper vigilant when you're entering into these extra protected spaces, right? In American law, we do have, we have protected classes, right? You can be bigoted. You just can't be bigoted based on these specific things.
Lactoid wants to get rid of the Civil Rights Act in Title VII.
Yeah,
you can disrupt
we'll leave
things
that for another day.
but you can't disrupt these specific institutions.
All right, yeah, that's all.
Okay,
So,
that's a whole other debate, and we can get into it another day.
No, but Lactoid raises a good point that there's a tension here, because for years conservatives have been railing against the FACE Act, and this is one area, both from the perspective of the abortion aspect, but also from the perspective of Commerce Clause expansion. And so I do understand the frustration to libs like me being like, hey, this is, whatever about Don Lemon. But I can understand the frustration from the conservative. That's one area where I can understand the frustration. But I will just say, I think that you should be principled. I understand that Lactoid is offering a legal analysis. I know that Gen Z is doing that as well. But I don't think that the elements are met out for Don Lemon. The other case is strong, but I would also be against it for prudential reasons. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and just say one more thing.
One more thing,
I would
but
feel
we got limited time, and I
know
this might be a
horrible
bigger convo. So go ahead.
Okay. I would feel less comfortable about this discretion being used if it wasn't for the fact that he should be charged with trespassing anyway, a different misdemeanor, that he was asked to leave and he didn't, right? Like on the moral basis, that's, I'm okay with discretion being used. Like, yeah, he factually violated the law potentially, I think. And do I want there to be discretion used when it comes to enforcing this? Yes. But when the discretion is being used in favor of him the other way on a different misdemeanor, I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard to really be complaining all that much.
So just to kind of go to the First Amendment possible issues here, as has been mentioned earlier in the panel, and I think that we've seen conversations about this in other areas, there is, I guess, how serious is the concern that charging Don Lemon with violations of the FACE Act for his actions during the church service that was disrupted, is that a threat to the First Amendment? Is that a threat to journalism, as some have described it? And if so, why and how? And I want to talk about it from that. So regardless of whether he's guilty or not, right?
Yeah.
Whether he actually did it, I want to talk about the government bringing this case. What are the concerns there? Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah. Think about the Mahmoud Khalil case and the case involving Mesa Ozturk. Those situations I doubt the legality there, but even grant that it was legal for them to remove their visas or reject them or try to deport them, or suppose that it were in fact legal to do. Even though, assume that it would be legal to do, the overall purpose here is to chill like anti-Israel speech on campus. Right? Same thing with some of these stand downs with law firms and with corporations. And so the whole pattern and practice of the administration has been on discrete issues, come up with deals, apply pressure to lawyers, to corporations, to schools, to all these different people. And regardless of the legal merits, people will feel chilled to criticize the administration, to take a position against the administration. And that's where the First Amendment concern is regardless of the legality here, the fact that the administration is responding to anti-journalistic sentiment, responding to viewpoint discriminatory people who really want to make the MAGA consensus the law and enforce everything through the viewpoint of what's in the best interest of MAGA, that obviously raises chilling concerns, not just here, but it's part of a broader practice of using every instrument and power at the disposal of the federal government to lean on enemies and to coerce people into being violent. That's my view.
But I think though, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think on a principled level, a lot of what you're saying is correct. I think on a practical level, though, of what we've seen happen, I mean, what happened after the Jimmy Kimmel suspension? He comes back raging, roaring with best ratings he's ever had. What's going to happen with Don Lemon? This is like I was so happy Don Lemon had largely left the scene of any part of any political relevance, and now all of a sudden he's back, front and center, baby. He's a martyr for all the journalists out there. And so I think, I mean, I think you're correct in your principled analysis. I think the fact of the matter of the situation is, though, is like it's the same issue when Trump got indicted, is that that got turned. Yeah, it's a bad thing that happened. I know we'll disagree on that. We don't have to go into it, but it was a bad thing that happened, in my opinion. But what it did, PR speaking, public relations, it shot him back to the top. And in fact, I'd argue shot him back into the White House. And so,
yeah, but not every. It might cause a backlash for the specific cases, and I agree with the Kimmel example. That's one of them. But it sent a message more broadly, and not everyone is as brave or has the support of Jimmy Kimmel. There are people who you don't know about who are just silently, doing whatever. Think about the CBS situation and the mergers and stuff. People where there's so much money at stake that, notwithstanding like the public outcry, they just kind of like they have to bend the knee to a certain extent. Say nothing of like. What's the organization or the corporation that does all the local news channels? You guys know the name of it. Oh my god, Sinclair, right?
What it was.
Yeah, all the murders and stuff like that. Like that stuff. Yes, there are cases in which people have stood up and pushed back or whatever. But there's been a lot of compliance as well. There's been a lot of anticipatory compliance. A lot of law firms have bent the knee. A lot of schools have bent the knee. And so for every case where there is a backlash, you're not pricing in all the different compliance moments that are occurring as a result of the administration.
Also, can I get a response to what Pisco says? Do either one of you disagree that he's targeting Don Lemon to chill the fact that Don Lemon is antagonistic towards Trump? Do you guys think that?
Yeah. They wouldn't charge him if he was a conservative person that did the same exact conduct there. And let's even say that
they literally get pardoned.
Let me elaborate. At a liberal church where there's they would not charge these people with the Face Act.
Something, right? Someone did this.
You have to agree with a mosque. They wouldn't charge this. They would say it's trespass. We don't want to look into it.
It's possible they don't. I don't know for sure. It's possible they don't. I would agree that it'd be less likely. But the reason for that is not specifically because they're targeting Don Lemon for being outspoken against the administration. At least not in this case. You could maybe bring up other examples where the administration is flawed. I will concede that there are absolutely situations in which the administration is flawed. But how I read this situation, especially on the back of the current anti-ICE protests, is the message that I see trying to be conveyed by the administration is not necessarily specifically to Don Lemon. It's more along the lines of, if you're going to trespass and disrupt these churches, we are going to drop a hammer on you. In fact, if you and I think this is generally the disposition of the administration, where they want to drop a hammer on these ICE protests, right? And these because they think they're getting out of hand. And in this case, with this church, it did, right? And so the example being set here is, if you're going to break the law in doing something that, clearly,
and
when
you're
you watch
not
the video,
aligned with us, then you're fucked. That's the message. No MAGA person is being chilled by the DOJ's conduct and charging decision here. They're not, right? Because no one trusts that this is going to be a standard applied to MAGA if they were to, I don't know, go to a mosque and yell some words and call Muhammad, child abuser, et cetera, et cetera.
Possibly. I really don't know if that's the case. You could be right. We'll wait and see if a scenario comes up in which this happens. Hopefully it doesn't. But I'm not convinced that is the case. In fact, now they might do it just to look consistent. So I don't know if we'll ever truly know if they would do it otherwise. But I think that this to me is much less about trying to
consistent.
Well, I think that's important,
okay,
because I think
Okay.
We're treating this as like the genesis of any application of the FACE Act. I know earlier we did good talk about some of the precedent applied to abortion clinics, but like for the political conversation, a lot of what I'm seeing from the right now is basically this has been wielded as a hammer against pro-life activists who, yes, sometimes are physically blockading, barricading, whatnot, but other times they're just out there singing songs. They're out there praying outside of the abortion clinic, not even inside. They're outside, and they're getting prosecuted and getting years in jail under the FACE Act. And so, yes, I think there is a bit of a political retribution angle, not in a we need to target specific people, but in a hey, if you're gonna like, because Ahrelevant, you made a great.
It's not the anti-journalist political angle. It's the disruptive protest / riot political angle. Like if you're going to protest us and disrupt us in this way, then we're going to bring the hammer down on you. That's what I think the angle is.
Me and Lactoid agree there are issues with the FACE Act, and maybe Pisco as well. Like how the FACE Act is currently written. Yes, it's been upheld as constitutional, but like Ahrelevant, you're making observations about like, are we really going to construe that like a 5-degree blockage at the angle is going to be a violation? It's like, unfortunately, underneath the FACE Act, the way it's currently written, that is an analysis that has to be done. We would not all of us, but me and Lactoid would probably at least argue to either severely modify or get rid of altogether the FACE Act as it's written. But yeah, unfortunately, this is where we are.
By the way, I would modify it a lot.
I
might even get rid of it entirely.
Okay, so just to be clear, you Lactoid and GenZAttorney, you both disagree with the idea that this has a political component due to the Don Lemon's antagonism towards the Trump administration. So just to be clear, if it was a conservative doing this to like a mosque, you believe that it would be at all comparable that Donald Trump would be coming down on it?
Well, no,
that's not the question.
And real quick, let me just answer that correctly, and then you go for it. But
and then I'll answer it incorrectly.
Yeah, the
At least he's consistent, gang. At least he's consistent. But go ahead. Yeah.
The reason I'm saying I don't see this as we're going to target Don Lemon specifically is because there was another lady who's like a local journalist, Georgia Fort, I think is her name, who was also basically the same role, inhabited the same role in this specific protest. She was also indicted.
Because she occupies the same role politically.
She's anti-Trump, no?
My
point is anti-Trump, not Don Lemon, whatever his middle name is, when he was born. Yeah, it's not like, it's not that. It is Don Lemon is anti-Trump. Therefore, I am anti-Don Lemon.
Yeah, that's where we disagree. Because
so
in my mind, let me give you like an analogy. I think that if you had like a left winger who wasn't critical of Trump all that much, let's say, I don't know if this person still exists in America, but let's just assume that they do, right? You have someone who's like, I'm not a big critic of Trump. I'm not going to really talk shit about Trump, but I'm really big in favor of,
Well, that's not a comparison, no, the comparison is between people who support the administration. Are they going to be chilled into by this conduct?
Correct.
That's the comparison we're trying to draw. Because if it's a principled distinction related to the conduct, then it would apply to the political allies of the president. And we're not talking about left wingers who aren't aligned. It's right wingers who are aligned. Will they go after them? And the answer is no.
It would, but like coincidentally. So the question is like, are they targeting Don Lemon because his journalism is generally antagonistic of Donald Trump? And in my mind, it could be any left winger, any left wing journalist there who is like showing support for the protest. And I guess they would have to. I guess you could also have a right winger who was maybe like if Thomas Massey was there, who was also supporting
the anti-ICE protest.
Yes,
run by Trump.
Sure. And they were there disrupting the church service in pursuit of this disruptive goal of disrupting ICE or negatively portraying ICE. I think that the administration has much more of an interest in targeting that behavior than necessarily Don Lemon's antagonism of Donald Trump.
So let's say there was a FACE. Let's say there was a FACE Act which incorporated, like, I don't know, let's say childhood learning or leering centers, and Nick Shirley like went into them one and like sticked around and did the same kind of stuff that Don Lemon did. Yes or no? Is there a chance the federal government would charge Nick Shirley in that context?
Is there a chance? Yeah, there's a chance.
No, a reasonable chance. Come on.
Is it possible? It is possible.
Is it a reasonable chance? No, you know that.
You
know that.
Yeah, no way.
If learning centers were protected in the same way, and him and a bunch of his people went in where all the children are, and they all started chanting, and the children looked terrified, Maybe. I don't know what the percentage chance would be, but maybe. Remember, you look at the decision whether or not to pursue this, like discretion here. That's going to be influenced by a number of factors. I'm not denying that the fact that this is like
they're corrupt. They're politically corrupt.
I'm not denying that the fact that this is like a disruption that's disrupting for the purpose of or against the purpose of the Trump administration, in this case specifically with ICE. I'm not disagreeing that is a factor, but it's not just that like influenced the decision here. It's they went in and they're all screaming, and some of them are saying really hateful things to these kids, and the video they look pretty fucking terrified, and like there becomes pressure on the administration to act in situations like that, right? There is pressure. Like, what, are you going to let them get away with this? Are you going to let them do this and then nothing happens? Especially when
there's been so many, like the murder.
I want to ask a specific hypothetical that is tailored to Nick Shirley, because I actually think Nick Shirley is a funny and good example. If Nick Shirley went to a mosque full of Somalians and then was like with a group of people who were like,
Somalis, hey, please,
looking for fraud. Okay.
So the same hypothetical that
Pisco
asked earlier.
Yeah, but like for fraud, to stop the fraud, and he was literally doing the exact same thing Don Lemon does, literally frame perfect, matter in the universe perfect.
Him and a group of people.
Get charged? Yes, in a group of people. Would he be charged by Donald Trump for exposing the Somali fraud?
I've same. It's basically a reframe of the exact. Hold on, it's the reframe. I know you guys.
Gen Z.
Okay,
come on.
Hold up.
Well, Lactoid says no. Does Gen Z say no? Just to get everyone's opinion.
This is the
Gen Z. I want to hear. Hold on, Lactoid, please. I want to hear Gen Z just a yes or no answer.
Question to me.
It's a better hypo. It's a better hypo because it actually covers the thing.
I want to hear Gen Z's answer to that specifically.
What you asked covers the same thing. The FACE Act.
No, I was talking about the Leering Center, and there's no Leering Center component to the FACE Act.
Yeah, the FACE Act.
But you asked what if there was, so it's the same question, really.
Kind of, but I like this one better.
Okay, Gen Z, if Gen Z agrees or disagrees, you could just say, right? It's really easy, and then we can give it right back to you, Lactoid. I just want
it's a lower chance.
What would they charge?
I think unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay.
Unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Wait, what percentage? What percentage chance?
0.0001%.
Oh, come on. Really?
My argument is as close to zero as still being possible.
How much is infinity again?
Here's why. If you had to push me to like give percentages, I think that there was like given the situation that happened with Don Lemon, there's probably like a 70% chance that they would have gone through with charging Don Lemon. And I think that in a similar situation, like the situation that you described, 45 to 60, 45 to 60.
Not a chance.
60%. Hold on, 60% chance.
I want to hurt myself.
I'm sorry. I love you, brother. That is crazy.
45. Hold on. The low end is 45. That's below half. I don't know why you guys are so.
Yeah, that's the low end of your prediction.
If they did everything that happened in that video,
most of your prediction is above 50%.
Yes.
I predicted the election accurately, so you guys can laugh all you want. I'm just saying.
How is that? That was a close election. We're not talking about the same thing. The one is like, will Trump be principled? Guess, and like, holy shit, that's different than can Trump win the election? And you betting that Trump would be principled. Oh, I don't know what you've been watching, my friend. I don't know what television set you've been watching.
I said 45, which is significantly less than 70. Like there is a gulf here. I'm acknowledging the gulf here. I'm acknowledging that there is this is a motivation.
It's not enough.
I feel like a lot of people would see that as this dude damn near got like the Medal of Honor after him going to Minnesota. And they were like, yes, sir, we're sending ICE in tomorrow, Nick Shirley.
For however crazy, by the way, and I hope it doesn't happen, partially because it'd be bad or whatever. But I'm also kind of hoping something similar does happen, and then I'm right, because that'd be great. But 45, you guys can think is way too high. But 0.001 or as close as zero, I mean, you guys are way on the low end.
I believe there is no chance.
No chance. That's crazy.
Trump
all the little Somalian children all afraid. They think they're going to die. No, hold on. Imagine. You're going to
hold on, just real quick. Lactoid, we have videos of children in church crying because ICE is outside, and no one's been
if ICE
and they,
were
they,
to,
they cheer that on.
Yeah,
They's like, oh,
ICE were
a
to
child
enter within the
crying.
place of work.
We don't give a shit.
Wait, Lactoid. I'm going to give you a
there's
scenario.
difference there.
I'm going to tell you what I think would happen. Let's say that there was like a worthy U.S. attorney, assistant AUSA, who and like a non-corrupt person who decides to charge this case. The very first thing would be Julie Kelly, Nick Sorter, Cam Higbee, all these losers. Tim Pool would say, "Oh my God, how is the Trump administration? They have deep state agents embedded themselves. They can't be possibly indicting Nick Shirley, who just exposed all this fraud." That would get up the chain, and immediately the guy would be fired, whoever started the case, and or Trump would pardon the person. And for you to suggest that they wouldn't do that after we've seen the course of conduct in the last decade, I think that's I don't know, man. I think that's crazy. I think it's crazy. 45.
I think it's equally, because I'm imagining a scenario. You have a bunch of people, people stereotypically going to be like, they look stereotypically against the Somalian community, right? You know, the kinds of the plaid shirt wearing fucking rednecks, and they're all walking in and they're saying this shit to the Somalian children who are sitting on the pews huddled together, and you have the parents there and everything, and they're chanting and they're screaming like angry things towards the Somalian community. And then you have Nick Shirley, who's like doing all the same things that Don Lemon does in that specific scenario, and all the same facts. I think 45 is fair. I think
Lactoid.
I don't think it's going to be as high as the 70.
I think there's a 45% chance that Nick Shirley, under those circumstances, gets brought to the White House and given the Medal of Honor.
I literally believe that.
Donald Trump puts out
a
tweet, a
It's so
social
good I am
tweet
at
saying,
predicting things.
God bless the best journalist, Nick Shirley, for exposing the fraud in that Somalian mosque.
He didn't expose anything,
right?
though.
Those children.
This was
liberal children.
This was not expositional fucking journalism. This was a protest.
I will engage with that specific hypothetical, and I will tell you what I actually believe would happen. Okay, what would happen is Donald Trump would say, so Nick Shirley went over there, and a group of patriots went over there to expose the fraud of this church that is receiving state funds, that is state exempt, the fraud that is happening in this state. That's why we're cutting off federal aid to the area to be able to investigate
and
the
we're revoking their 50C, whatever status for taxing.
That's exactly what would happen. That's the 45 to 60% chance right there. I promise you, he would turn it into they're exempt from so many different taxes and stuff like that, and the fraud is rampant. I promise you that's what would happen. But I want to hear from
They would attack the church.
Yes, exactly. Do you believe that Donald Trump would prosecute Nick Shirley?
Well, I wanted to make sure I was clear on the hypothetical. Are we saying that Nick Shirley rode along with a protest group who went to disrupt the mosque? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot lower as far as what percent I'd put on Trump prosecuting him for it. If he was part of like the group of like, we're here to go in and disrupt this, I think I would agree with Lactoid. I think there's a decent chance that he does get prosecuted. If he like Pisco, you've been good faith enough to sorry, that sounded like you're usually not. Let me just say, you were nice enough to say like the case against the other protesters here seems pretty strong on its face as far as they had their agreement, they were doing what they're doing. I think if Nick Shirley was riding along like Don Lemon did here, I'd put it pretty low prosecute. I'd probably less than 10%. I'd say. Sorry, Lactoid.
It's okay. Listen, Lactoid. He will not think the administration is corrupt until he's personally like being walked to the gallows and being given his like last meal because they consider libertarians to be.
I'll say this. I'll say this.
Like,
I'll admit it then, okay? If I'm being walked to the gallows...
Maybe I shouldn't have voted for Trump that time.
I will say, if I'm being walked to the gallows, I will say, Pisco was right. Fuck.
This is why...
Last words?
This is why I keep...
Last words, yeah.
Well, real quick, this is why I keep betting people that Trump's not going to run for a third term, because if I'm wrong, then I'm just going to get killed in the revolution anyway to stop the third term.
It's like a Pascal's wager type shit? What the fuck?
yeah, it's literally...
Swipe's going to owe me a gun to take up against the government if Trump gets elected to a third term. So we're going to be in the trenches.
Some of my comments is Bondi would make Shirley DOJ consultant. They would give him a job.
45 to 60.
Special envoy to the Somalian American community.
Literally, unironically.
Yeah. Are we wrapping up, Wick, here?
Yeah, we're wrapping up. I just want to... Oh, man. I guess just to kind of add on to the the discrepancies I see between how the Trump administration's been acting and how any other administration I see has acted. Today, I think it was the Washington Post, came out with a report saying that there was a gentleman who wrote a letter to a judge asking for mercy for an refugee asylum seeker. Within 5 hours, the DHS had basically got a warrant for their emails, to go through their emails and search their emails. Federal agents showed up to that person's door with subpoenas and things like that, just for writing a letter. Okay? This is crazy. They're acting in crazy ways. I don't understand what else they'll need to do to get Lactoid. Well, at least Gen Z was a little more reasonable on this, but to get to Lactoid to admit the DOJ currently, the DHS and all them, they're not acting within the bounds that's been set to them. They are doing crazy shit and they need to be held to account. But that's just my opinion. Okay, let's get to closing statements. Let's wrap it up. I want to thank you all for being here. Hit those like buttons. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what I do. We got great content coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're doing something a little different. We're hooking someone up to a shot collar. And you can donate. There's different levels, okay, to shock them, and it'll be fun. Check it out.
You're obsessed with the song.
Is this a song simulator? Like, what's going on?
No, this person was like, yeah, I guess they've done it before on their own channel, and they're like,
is it a guy or a girl?
It's a girl. So,
oh wow,
yeah, check it out. It should be fun. I'm gonna give the mic to Lactoid to start. We'll let Pisco have the last word. Mount Lactoid, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I stand by everything I said. I thought this was a really good discussion. I think that the differences in opinion were elucidated and made clear. And I think what I said in the intro, which is that, ultimately this case, we don't exactly know what's going to happen with this case. I think that's true. I think that there is a sufficient legal basis. I think one of the things we all agreed upon was Don Lemon should have been arrested. Whether it be for something, whether trespass or FACE Act or the KKK Act. Now, my position has been that I do think that Don Lemon should have been arrested based on the information that I've seen. But one of the divergences I have with some other like right-wing commentators, especially Matt Walsh, is that there's a lot of people who are really calling for Don Lemon's head on this, that they want to see serious punishment. And the KKK Act is no joke. That can provide, it's a felony that can provide up to 10 years in incarceration. And do I think in any which way Don Lemon's going to get anywhere close to that? No. But 10 years would be crazy. It would just be absolute lunacy. Anywhere close to 10 years would be lunacy. And I think this is my argument really for bringing this into terms with the January 6th protesters, which is I do think that a lot of the January 6th protesters should have been charged and gotten in trouble for the different actions they did. But I think the punishments in many cases were too harsh, right? And so the pardons did come after significant periods of punishment. If Don Lemon gets anywhere close to the kind of punishment in which the next president would have to pardon him, I would say that would be a folly. I don't think that should happen. So I think Don Lemon does, from what I've seen, the allegations make sense. I think, or some of them make sense. I'm not super big on the KKK Act aspect of it, but I do think that some of the allegations make sense. I do think that there does need to be some punishment here, from what I can see. But we have to be reasonable here, and the people chanting for his head, I just don't agree with that. I'd want to see very moderate, misdemeanor level punishment handed down for his actions.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you.
And I'm Lactoid. You can find me on Lactoid TV.
Yeah, go check him out, gang. Gen Z, please.
Thank you. Well, Lactoid really did a good job covering, I think, most of it. I agree that this was a good conversation, so I appreciate my counterparts here for engaging in good faith throughout the evening. Looking forward to future discussions with both of you. As far as the facts here, I agree insofar as I'm not sold that, like I said, it's not open shut, slam bang, slam dunk conviction. In fact, I think chances of conviction are not high, and even if he is convicted, I don't think punishment's going to be significant at all. Because you got to keep in mind as well. Yes, it's federal court, but this is Minnesota. We're in Minnesota that we're dealing with, and their history of hearing some other cases is they're just the people there have their beliefs, they have their feelings, and I think trying this case that's going to come out and whatnot. And so yeah, not a high chance of conviction. I don't even know that he's going to spend a single day in jail. But even if he does, President Newsom, 2028, day one, if he pardons him, you will not hear a peep from me as saying that's a bad thing or a wrong thing. I still do think there was enough under totality of the circumstances. There is enough evidence there to establish probable cause, which, like we said earlier, is a much lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I think there was enough there to arrest him, issue the charges, and proceed with the litigation. I think actually I might be more sold on the KKK Act as far as there being the conspiracy with the agreement beforehand, the shared intent on the ideology behind it and what they wanted to see happen. I think his claiming to be a journalist, I can see kind of the same way after George Floyd was legitimately saying, I can't breathe. I can tell you as a prosecutor, nearly every other case, body cam I watched where people are getting physically arrested, guess what they're saying? I can't breathe. And so I could see where we have a situation where now people are trying to push the limit and say, oh, I'm just a journalist. I'm just a journalist. So maybe we'll have a new lemon test. My lawyers will appreciate that joke. But either way, I'm more sold on the KKK Act. The FACE Act, I think after watching it, through not as sold, other than maybe the interview by the door. I know you guys think that's pretty weak stuff, but I still think that can be argued, or at least for a jury to decide that's physical obstruction as he's following the guy and partially blocking the door. But sorry. Anyway, that was a lot. You can find me on Twitter at the GenZAttorney. Once again, appreciate the conversation. Appreciate everyone sharing their time, and yeah, looking forward to more good discussions in the future.
Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Ahrelevant.
I'm Ahrelevant. That's Ahrelevant on all platforms. That's YouTube, Kick, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, everything. As seen. And I enjoyed this discussion. I wasn't able to offer as much like legal analysis as any of the other individuals in here, but I did enjoy it. I liked hearing some of the actual arguments for like case law and stuff like that might be relevant to this. I feel like I didn't really understand what the FACE Act is here, but it feels like nobody's super happy with how it's written. So there's, no matter which side of the aisle is, it seems like you got an issue with it. And there were some pretty convincing arguments as to why I feel like even I could get behind the idea that there were some issues with it. I feel like this was, from my opinion, unbelievably, obviously politically motivated. I believe that there is no chance that Nick Shirley, and kind of to what Wick was saying, I literally believe there's a higher chance that Nick Shirley would receive an award if he did this than there would be a punishment. So yeah, this is like a political hit job. I don't believe there is any real justice being doled out here, even if we might agree that he committed the crime of trespass, or he could be arrested for trespass. I believe that all the intentionality behind any of the charges here is purely spite driven. So yeah.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. Last but certainly not least, Pisco.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, good discussion. I think that there's not enough to establish probable cause for any of the crimes that Don Lemon is charged with. I think that the evidence about him saying, "Oh, don't say anything," the fucking snow thing, doesn't go to show what I think is a very important part of the FACE Act, or at least should be a very important part of the FACE Act, which is the intent portion of it. I recognize that there have been some cases where the physical obstruction question is like highly like flexible to include even things that seem quite trivial. But in this case, it seems trivial at best. And I just think there's nothing close to like a strong case for the intent portion here for Don Lemon. I think that there's a journalistic purpose here, even if he is sympathetic. It's all consistent. I don't know that he should be like arrested. I think he should be charged for trespass. Maybe that would necessitate arrest of some kind in Minnesota. I'm not sure. But I think that you can like issue a citation or whatever. This was a trespass. I think it's a stronger case against the other protesters for FACE Act violations. We've talked about some of the problems we have with the FACE Act, and I think that is a bipartisan type thing. So I think it's a crying shame that Don was charged. And I think it does show political involvement from the administration in an effort to chill speech and dissent, because they would not apply the standard to other people similarly situated who are allied with the current administration. And I think that is self-evident, really, based on the not self-evident in the sense of like you just assume it, but like based on the conduct so far, I think it's ridiculous to think that they would apply that same level to their own friends and support the administration. So on that, I think this is totally not a good charge to bring, and ultimately, I think it will probably fail. Not just me saying that. Magistrate judges rejected the charges, and Robert Barnes, MAGA guy, said less than 10% chance. So I'm not alone here. I'm not alone on that. I'm Pisco Liddy. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. Thanks, Wick, so much for facilitating the conversation. I thought it was great.
I'm glad you liked it. With that, we're gonna let you guys go. Wave bye, 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 bye.
We are Lemon.
Okay. Have an 11 party here. Okay, let me send them on their way. Gang, I'm gonna read your super chats because you paid me money. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. Okay. Get through it. $5 from Audacity. One way or another, Lactoid gets all his clients off. Hey, there we go. $5 from Audacity again. If you support Don Lemon, make sure to vote to his political campaign. To learn more, just Google Lemon Party. Do not do that, gang. That would be wrong. Don't do it. $2 from Robert Paulson. Don is black, so for Gen Z and lactate, he's a threat. $5 more from Audacity. Don insurrected the church. $5 from the pleb. No love for Lemon, but come on. Even Mark Eglarsh, I don't know how to say his fucking last name. Megyn Kelly, contributor and practicing defense attorney, said in no way did Lemon break the law. $5 from Hell's Advocate. Do pro-persecution or prosecution on the panel believe ICE is violating the act when they go into churches to arrest people? Or does it only apply to lib journos? $5 from Audacity. Thank you for $5. Any consideration that Lemon compelled behavior from the practitioner to give an interview based on his behavior at the door? No. $5 from Fu Si Shu to say Don Lemon, the new face of freedom of the press. The right just gave this moron legitimacy and made him entirely sympathetic. Well done, guys. $10 from Fu Si Shus to say 18 U.S. Code Section 248(2) requires intent to injure, intimidate, or interfere. If he's there as a journalist, where's the intent to do any of those things? This case is a fucking joke. $5 from Hell's Advocate. From they gave protesters a ride to he gave advice to get car out of snow is wild. I really hope he hadn't seen this video before sending it, LMAO. And just to be clear, it wasn't Gen Z that sent that video, it was someone else. Apparently, this is the video that Sitch and Adam watched that convinced Nate the lawyer, apparently. That's what I'm being told. $2 from Nick Costanza. Another Trump lie defended by MAGA lawyers. Gross. $20 from Oh My God, It's Soup. The strongest evidence they have is Don Lemon digging somebody out of snow. Laughy face, laughy face. Obvious professional agitator aggressor, and he's the leader behind everything revolving around this church issue. Thank you for the $20. Really appreciate it. $5 from Audacity. I would argue that the embedded journalist argument falls apart because Don interferes with the practitioner attempting to manage an emergency. And then $5 more from Audacity says Don had a Geraldo Rivero moment. I don't know, gang. I'm going to be real with you. I thought there was a stronger case to be had. Oh, Zero Fox is correcting me. He says it didn't convince Nate. It was the closest thing to convincing. And doesn't that speak to it, right? At the end of the day, that's the strongest bit of evidence. It looked to me like I've been obstructed more by the greeters at churches I've gone to than that guy looked, right? I just don't, it didn't pass the smell test to me. Like, again, I agree that the other protesters should be charged because they violated it. They obviously had intent. They obviously interfered. They obviously disrupted. But for Don Lemon, I didn't see him obstructing. I didn't see him using force. I didn't see him do any of those things. And if your argument is that, well, he was part of the group, he made it clear throughout. Like, if you actually watch the incident, he made it clear throughout that he wasn't part of the protesters, that he was there from a journalistic perspective. He says that several times. I don't see how you get past the reasonable doubt standard, right? I just don't see this getting a conviction at all. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law. That's why I brought in mostly lawyers to talk about it, because maybe they can educate me on this. But yeah, it just feels very weak. What do you guys think? Polygraph lie detector says, "Hey, Wick, want to answer for why the Republicans of the House are welcoming the call to take over elections?" Man, you got to ask a Republican. Why are you asking me? I'm a Democrat. Solemn Argus says he's going to get his booty taken in jail. Well deserved at that. It's a little gross. You think that deserves him to get raped? What he did deserves someone raping him? So it's a little harsh. Also, he's probably not going to go to jail. He didn't spend any time in jail. He was released without bail. Yeah, I just don't see I just don't see that happening. Yeah, it's gross, man. Why are you saying that shit like that? That's weird. It's very weird. Like, let me focus on this for a moment, right? Like, people ask me, like, well, why do you think that Republicans in MAGA are violent? Why do you think that they just want the worst for you? Like, why do you think that they want people to suffer and die and be hurt and injured? And that's why. That's why I think. It's because whenever one of their political enemies gets hurt, they celebrate it. They celebrate or excuse it. They'll be like, "Oh, that's what he gets. That's what he gets." I don't know. Not a huge deal. But it is like, well, you want to know why? That's why. You want an answer to why people think the worst of you guys? That's why. That's the answer. You now have an answer to your question. So. Saul Marcus says, "No, I just want him to because I heavily dislike him. I don't think this one thing he did has earned it. It's just his behavior for a lifetime." Okay. Okay. Let's see. Tomorrow, it's going to be a call-in show with Lumi, the co-host of the Archcast is coming on. And yeah, they have like this shock garter thing that they've agreed to, because they have like a tier list for super chat. So if you chat like $20, they get shocked at a certain level of intensity. And okay, I think it'd be weird, but it'd be fun. So we're gonna try it out. If it works well, I think it'd be funny to have a panel like that where you hook up all the panelists to shock things, and if instead of muting them, I could just shock them, right? Just to get them to shut up. I think that would be funny. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm curious how it goes. It's something we're trying. So yeah. I'm not thinking big enough. I don't know. We want to get it too big. I don't want to actually hurt anyone. I don't want to actually hurt anyone. You want me to get a caller also? Well, tell you what, for enough money, anything's possible. But I ain't gonna do it for free. Okay. Let's see. Also, gang, if you have topics that you want me to cover and you think that I'm ignoring or something, I'm always open for suggestions. Or if you have specific guests you want on, I'm always open for suggestions there. Like if you think that there's someone out there that deserves to be on more shows and I haven't had them on before or I haven't had them on a lot, pass their name to me. And I'll see what I can do. Cool. Solemn Argus says, I got to call one of them Kaya. Yeah, maybe. Okay. I think we're done. I love you all. And I will see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay? Bye-bye.